shut the fuck up. It's a little thing I do around here, Finn. G'day, Groover. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. I did we call it ride down here, but like a spin class at the gym about an hour ago, and I think my glutes are going to be a bit sore a bit later on. How's everyone doing in chat? Welcome, Groovers. Good to see you all here. Thanks for popping Finn's link into Sesh, and I did put a little note at the start of chat for the mods to drop links, not just for Finn, but obviously Finn's important. But anyone else in chat with a channel, go for a goal, drop your links. And if you don't have a wrench, ask Sesh or one of the mods to do that for you. Welcome to my channel, Finn. Now, you're not a scammer. I'll explain that.
Yeah.
Whoever used to my channel know I do a bit of scam baiting. I just want to clarify right from the start, Finn is not a scammer. He's joining me because Finn and I are two of, 4 YouTube creators?
Yeah.
6 that have been talking about the proposed media bargaining code that's coming in. Some of you guys might have seen my lives that I've done on it. One of them was I chatted about it on a beach walk, as you do. But yeah, hey Claire Bear, hi Francesca. I do a little shout out to everyone. I have a problem. G'day, Seshoo, fantastic workmate. Douglas, good to see you, Groover. Claire Bear, who have I missed? Lurkers, welcome. Trolls, you're welcome if you're funny. If you just show us your tits over and over again, you'll get blocked because that's just not that funny. If you say show us your moobs, you might be allowed to stay.
Even that's got limits.
But welcome everyone that's arriving now. Finn, you're in Queensland, correct?
Yeah, Brisbane.
Yeah, Brisbane, Vegas. So what's the weather like up there? Because we've got everyone chatting about the weather. Pretty good.
Skies non-stop.
Nice. We're starting to get really lovely spring weather here, although yesterday we had gale force winds, and this house is actually on stilts, and it was rocking like a boat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, 120k wind sort of stuff going on. Claire Bear, she had 26 degrees today. Francesca, Victoria, no one stays here for the weather, that's true. And a big shout out and lots of love to everyone in Melbourne, in Victoria. Hang in there, Groovers, you've got this.
It must be a rough time down there right now.
Couldn't think of anything worse, really. I mean, we sort of had a trial run in Tassie a few months ago because we had a cluster. We were actually doing the worst out of all the states in Australia for a little while. So we all had a bit of a self-isolation dress rehearsal, but it still wasn't pure lockdown, We didn't have curfews and only leave the house for 1 hour kind of stuff going on. So we're thinking of all of you Groovers.
When I had Zach on my channel, he was saying that I didn't hear this until I spoke with him. He was saying they have drones now going around watching people.
Yeah, I listened to that live, and I don't know if Sesh will probably jump up on panel with us as well because he's got a lot to say about this topic. Anyone else is welcome too. I thought we have got a bit of a rough idea of what we're going to do tonight. I thought I'll just go through the chronology of how this whole media bargaining code thing came about, just in case anyone's watching and they have no clue what we're talking about. I do have a lot of subs in the US and also in the UK that sometimes join us. So, it's good just to do a bit of a rehash as well. Oh, shit, Francesca's. Jaguar Media, hello and welcome. Francesca, sorry to hear about your brother. I'm glad he's come back negative, but being sick's not good. So good to see you here, Jaguar Media. So a little chronology just to kick off. Then we're going to play a little video that Finn's found of Kevin 07.
I still remember that. campaign. That was
really, you look too young to remember that campaign.
Oh, thank you. Just got a baby face, that's all it is.
Yeah, baby face channel, when Sesh comes up too. Well, I think we're all a bit babyish looking, which is good. bit of fun. And we'll try and make this as entertaining as we can too, even though it's kind of a heavy topic.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Throw a few laughs in, even if it's just doing a reaction video to Kevin07. So the way this all came about, Groovers, is in the end of 2018 into 2019, they had this thing that was called a digital platform inquiry. And what came out of that is that Google, also YouTube, owned by Google, and Facebook had basically distorted local media advertising markets. And what this meant was that other independent, smaller publishers were having trouble monetizing their content. That is essentially what was found in this inquiry. And what they basically decided with that was that they wanted Google and Facebook to start sharing credit and compensating media content. And because I mean, at the end of the day, the two media outlets that were really getting the most exposure on their platforms were the big two, like Packer and Murdoch. What do you call them? Frontier Media, not a Frontier Media. What's the term? Legacy media. So they were getting, a lot of exposure because they weren't being regulated essentially, and they've got big bucks, so they were getting more exposure on those platforms. So out of the inquiry came a recommendation for a code so that there's some sort of consideration flow that's regulated to stop the really big media outlets handing over gigantic checks and getting all of the exposure on Google/YouTube/Facebook. And that was essentially what this inquiry recommended. Now, Australia is not the first country to have similar concerns. European Union, Spain, France have all gone down this road before. So this isn't a first. I mistakenly said that earlier on in one of my lives, that I thought that one of the reasons Google and YouTube in particular were being so full on and telling everyone about this and taking a fairly sort of scare campaign stance. And I still think it was alarmist, and I still think it was poorly written. It didn't refer to anything factual. It didn't even provide links. I mean, it started to do that, but
pure fearmongering.
Yeah, those initial warnings, even I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was scary. Even the big yellow triangle and warning, you're all going to die.
It just needed like a little sound effect to go with it.
Now, I didn't have time to research what happened in the EU, Spain and France, but I also do stand by my comment that came out of an independent lawyer at the time that I watched talking about it, that one of the reasons Google got so fired up about it so quickly was this code is way more detailed, and the amendments to the existing legislation, way more detailed and way more regulatory than what's happened in other countries. So part of Google's reaction was, shit, we don't want other countries adopting the same kind of code. So then in the ACCC, via our treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, announced that a draft code would be released in July this year. Earlier this year, there was a consultation process giving all the stakeholders an opportunity to reach an agreement so that they would have what's called a voluntary code. And so they all got together and tried to nut out a voluntary code, and that failed. That was back in April. In fact, it was on April the 20th, Hitler's birthday. Kind of interesting. So as a result of that, the Australian government said, well, fuck yous all, we're going to make this code mandatory. And it's basically addressing the bargaining power imbalance that already exists in Australia with the media exposure that gets put out there on Google and Facebook, basically. And again, I'm just going through the chronology. This isn't really an opinion. This is just what happened. The intention of the code is to direct the social media platforms to share revenue generated by use of content by the original publisher. That is the sentence that sums up what the intention is. There's been a lot of interpretations of it, and pretty extreme from both sides of the fence, whether you're on the Google, YouTube, Facebook side. I mean, Facebook is understandably silent on all of this because they're still hurting from Cambridge Analytica. A draft code was released by the ACCC on the 31st of July, and interested parties were given an opportunity to provide written submissions by the 28th of August. So that date's come and gone. There's heaps of things in the code that are pretty interesting, but the most critical point is the negotiation and payment that's going to go on between the Australian news outlets and Google and Facebook. But it is trying to create a fair payment scheme, and the inference is prior to this code, it just wasn't fair. Big bucks were being thrown around. Google and Facebook were taking it. Why wouldn't you? The Australian media outlets were going, the big ones were going, bring it on, and everyone was having a great old time. And now the situation is the Australian media can bargain with the two big tech giants and Facebook to secure fair pay for new news media content. And again, this also is in the intention of the code to give smaller regional news media outlets a fair chance to negotiate as well. That's what it's supposed to be doing. And there's a whole heap of stuff about the negotiation phase, and if agreement can't be reached, there's an arbitration process. There is a code for penalty. There's a clause for penalties as well. The idea is obviously now the Murdoch packers can't offer gazillions of dollars. Facebook and Google can't be throwing gazillions of dollars around in different, I mean, not just with the code, but with just generally. The whole idea is to try and break this up. But is it going to do it? Well, who knows? Now, it does only apply to Google and YouTube and Facebook at the moment because they pretty much have the distinct advantage over everyone else. But
I don't know if that's entirely true. It's mentioned in there that those are the ones that are mentioned now, but it doesn't close it off. It doesn't limit it to just those ones.
No, that's what I'm saying right now. There is provision in there for other outlets to be added. But again, that came from, I mean, it's in the code, in the draft, that other media outlets, other social media platforms can be added to it down the track. But there's certainly no reference to any specific platforms that are being considered at the moment at all. So there is the capacity to add more down the track, but at the moment, we're literally just talking about Google, YouTube, and Facebook.
I think the next one they'll add on is Twitter. I think they'll go for that the first chance they get.
Yeah, Twitter, I reckon, would be an obvious one. I mean, I think they cited in the explanatory notes on the ACCC website, I think they cited Twitter as an example of another one, but there's certainly no indication yet that there'll be any more added. Meanwhile, the Australian Communications and Media Authority, the ACMA, they've set criteria to determine what businesses are eligible to be governed and benefited under this code. But the other thing I want to point out before we then start chatting, hey, Will the Rocker, welcome Groover, is one of the main focuses which a lot of people I think are losing in discussions about this, is the whole point of this is also to bring the focus back onto Australian content, or what they're calling public interest journalism. And media businesses are eligible if the content that they produce is looking at things that are of public significance for Australians, issues that engage Australians in public debate and inform democratic decision-making, or issues relating to community and local events. They've also got to adhere to minimum levels of professional editorial standards. So it looks like we're in, Finn.
We won't make the cut, unfortunately.
No, we're not generating a revenue of over 150 grand a year.
Yeah. And
it has to operate in Australia for the main purpose of serving Australian audiences. Now, for someone who consumes a lot of media, the way things are at the moment, take the code out of the equation, the way things are at the moment, most of what we see is not from Australian news sources. It's from Reuters, or it's from Al Jazeera, or like there's so much overseas content. So I think it's really important when we discuss this too to keep reminding ourselves that that's possibly one of the really good things about it is it's bringing the focus back onto Australian content.
Well, even Rupert he's an American now, so technically our media is now American media.
Well, correct. And again, I don't think regulating them's a bad thing in that regard. So that's kind of where we are. I personally, and I'm really keen for Jason Dent. G'day, intelligent people. G'day, intelligent person. Jason. I personally feel, Finn, can you type something in the chat so that Sesh can tag you? Now, there's a couple of things about this. Well, there's three things that I'll say before we go into Rudd, and I'm keen to see what you say as well, Finn, and then we'll see how we go down the track when we start chatting. One is from the start of this, I've always felt that the Google alarmist approach was really fucked up. I think the ACCC's approach, as much as they tried to be clear and explain things, there's still that lingering connection to the government and major powerful media outlets in Australia. So there's a bit of blurry at each end. And I've always felt that somewhere in the middle is where all the realistic application of this code sits. And that's why I'm really keen for you to chat and walk us through the ABC response, because I think that's a really good example of that middle ground. But the other thing is, I mean, obviously till this is implemented, like it's really good to chat about it, but when things actually start to sort of kick in and you see it happening, like this is really the first innings, isn't it, of a never-ending cricket test. Until it's implemented, it's going to be hard to actually see how big a deal it is. But my feeling too, which it keeps popping into my head all the time, is I'm sort of almost anticipating Google and Facebook to take an approach similar to Amazon and just limit everything as far as Australia goes. And I don't actually think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I definitely think the media needs regulation. That's for sure.
There's a definite look. If there is this sort of disparity, I don't have an issue with regulation at all. But if Google and Facebook are like, we're not paying a cent and we're restricting what's available to Australians, then that means we're not going to be seeing all this Murdoch Packer shit all over Facebook and Google, right?
Well, that would be the ideal world,
Yeah.
Where you don't see that kind of shit unless you go searching for it.
Correct, and I'm a bit of an idealist, often to a fault. So, but it's one of those little things that just keeps popping in my head. It's like they're pissed off. What's to say they won't go down the same road that Amazon went down?
Yeah, very possible. I'm not too familiar with what happened with Amazon. Wasn't paying attention with that one.
Well, they stopped Australians being able to access the US Amazon, which has got a gazillion things on it compared to what's now the Australian version of Amazon. They basically said, fuck yous all, you can have your own version of us and it's going to be smaller with less content. Bit like Netflix.
Exactly like Netflix, yeah. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things the way we get the watered down version.
Correct. Although I've got to say that when Netflix first started, I was like, shit, there's not a lot of stuff on here, but now there's so much content, I wouldn't care if they never uploaded another show. There's no way I'll get through everything that's on Netflix now. But when it first started, I was like, I'm paying $15 a month to choose from 10 different TV shows. Woo! I mean, it has grown exponentially since then. But yeah, so that's basically, that's a very simplified version of what happened with Amazon, but they essentially went, fuck you can have your own. I think there must have been some sort of negotiation that fell apart. So you can't order from the US Amazon now. You've got to use the little pissy Australia. Well, it's still good, don't get me wrong. It's not a platform I don't go to it to look for stuff because it just doesn't have the range of things that I want. Exactly, Francesca, an ideal world without Murdoch. Sesh says, Finn, Do you think this will help smaller voices gain larger voices, or do you think this new legislation will backfire?
I don't think it's going to backfire. I think it's going to do exactly what it's intended to do. But what I think it's intended to do is make the Rupert and the legacy media the powerhouse. So every time you search, it only displays that stuff. And the 88 community journalists around the country actually commented on this. It's in one of my other videos you can go check out. But they quite frankly state that what they think is going to happen is that once this gets in and once the algorithms are released to these guys, then that's game over for regional media, for local media.
And yet the ABC disagrees with that stance. That was my reading of the ABC document. I got the feeling that they think it's actually going to give the regional outlets more power, and they do have the opportunity in the code to join forces if they need to. So yeah, I mean, that I'm still not, I haven't fully read the regional response, like I was saying to you earlier. So it's interesting your take on it, because I still feel in my gut that this is intended to give the regional outlets more power and take power away from the big guys. So we're sort of on opposite ends of the scale. But I found the ABC one, like I said, it's kind of middle ground, but even the ABC one was sort of saying it's still got a lot of flaws. There's still aspects that they haven't really considered that aren't in the code yet. But I found their comments about algorithms and data really interesting. So I'd love us when you show us through that document, I'd love to have a really good chat about that. So yeah, I mean,
what you were saying before, that's exactly what I want to happen. Like, I want the regional medias to have just as much influence, but they don't at the moment, and I don't think they're going to after this is passed.
But see, I don't think they've had it, because I don't think they've had that opportunity because they've just been outbid. There's been big money handed over the table left, right and centre, and that's why they haven't had a voice. There's a couple of other points too that some more little seeds that I'm going to plant for this discussion too, which one is one of my favourite books is George Orwell, 1984, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that are sheeple that are led by mainstream media, but I find independent news sources that I enjoy reading, and I go straight to them. If I type something into Google and the first thing that pops up is news or 9.com.au, for example, I don't go to that link. Like, I type in where I want to go. The other thing is, which Sesh and I were talking about last night, is how often does anyone, including you, Finn, but anyone in chat as well, how often do you guys actually click on anything you see on Facebook or any other sort of social media platform that's from mainstream media? How often do you actually?
I don't even have Facebook anymore, so I don't click on it ever. But even when I search through Google, I go page 2, page 3 before I click on a link. Like, anything on the first 2 pages is bullshit. Like, it's just paid for. So
Or I find now, because I access independent news sources a lot, that they're usually the first ones that pop up in my search now anyway. So that there's a lot of hyperbole in a way about it too, because while it does seem on the one hand to be, like you're saying, potentially giving them more power, they've already got fucking ultimate power. So
they have ultimate power over the airways. I don't think they have ultimate power on the internet, and I think that's what's freaking Google out. Is that they
And then on the other hand, is it going to strip that power away, and are we going to see a lot more Australian content? And if so, bring it on. So it's. But at the end of the day, if you're a discerning consumer and you have a brain and you like to go to news sources that you think are reliable, independent, unbiased, whatever, then you're going to keep going to them, whether or not you have to now go to page 10 of Google to find those links.
Which makes the whole thing pointless. It makes it completely irrelevant, because the people that are going to do that are always going to do that, no matter what.
Correct. But if it also means that the little guys that no one has seen, because they're on the 30th page of a Google search and now on the first page because they've all joined forces. I'm trying to find the note.
But from what I've read about what Google's algorithm is that the more website is visited, the more it gets pushed up. So if you've got one person that goes to page 30 and they click on that link to that underground journalist, and then they share it with their friends and they go to that link as well, it keeps pushing it up and up and up. So you
don't even have to have an algorithm for that to happen. If you create a website and you want it to be the first thing that pops up in the search feature, you can already manipulate that without even having any traffic on your website.
Yeah.
So, you can, I used to work for a conveyancer and I can't remember her process. I should actually contact her, but when she opened her business, she somehow, whenever anyone typed in Tasmania conveyancer or conveyancer Tasmania, her name was the first one to pop up. So, you can manipulate that. And we're all kidding ourselves already if we don't think that algorithms and data and all that stuff isn't already out there. This code isn't going to, and the code isn't even forcing the handover of that information. It's just saying be fucking transparent about it.
There's some words in there that do indicate that they need to hand over all the data all the time.
Cool.
Every day.
Well, I'm really keen to go more into what the ABC said about it, but should you share? We are in the minority, and most Australians do love Murdoch stuff, but they're already accessing Murdoch stuff. I honestly
what friend Sesko's got there about using DuckDuckGo in Firefox. Brilliant. That severely gets rid of all the bullshit straight away. Well, not all of it, but enough of it.
Just don't use Bing because Bing's shit. Every time I get a new computer, it's like, do you want Bing? Or it doesn't even ask me. It just sets it as my default. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, Bing.
Yeah.
Got it. Sorry. Yeah. I just want to know how Bing hasn't improved in like the last decade. Yeah. It's still shit.
It's still shit. It's horrible. We use it at work. It's the default browser at work, and you type something into it, and it gives nothing back. You're like, what the fuck is this? So then you go on Google, and it's like the first link. You're like, there you go, perfect. All right, no dramas. It's ridiculous. I don't know how Bing is functioning. I honestly don't know how that company is not. I don't know how Google hasn't abandoned that company. Not Google, Microsoft.
I'm just going DuckDuck. I'm loving DuckDuckGo. Tired of being trapped online? We can help. Get seamless privacy protection on your browser for free with one download.
Browser, I recommend everyone here to check out as well. That's called Brave.
Brave?
Really good. Really good. It's got inbuilt ad blocker in it, so it blocks everything. But if you want to get paid for the ads, so you can actually turn on ads, and you get, I think it's something around a third of the ad revenue you get to keep.
Wow.
And then Brave keeps the other 2/3 because it's their browser, so they can charge it. But I think they put into like a cryptocurrency account. I can't remember what crypto it is, but recommend that for people. It's very good.
I'm pretty much into tech stuff until we talk cryptocurrency, and then I'm just cross-eyed and haven't got a fucking clue. I can learn most things very quickly, but you might have to give us a lesson on that sometime too. So Francesca's like, get paid for ads. I'm thinking the same thing. I've opened up Brave as well. You deserve a better internet. See, I think, if this just pushes us all to get out of our comfort zone and start going to other browsers and, bring it on. I mean, I know there's a shitload of people that like watching fucking Koshi in the morning and reading the Herald Sun and all that stuff. He looks like a penis. I don't watch him.
Yeah. I don't think anyone watches Koshi, to be honest.
I hope not, but...
What I think it is? I think it's the dental offices and the just the offices that play this TV 24/7. I think those are the only views that those shows get anymore. Correct.
So Jason says Bing is owned by Microsoft. They want to be Google. Well, they're not doing a very good job of it. Sesh, I use Brave. See, I do. I'm a sucker for the cute little open up Google and it's some anniversary of something, little animations and stuff. I've always loved that. I love that Google used to put a smile on my dial, but I'm loving the little face of the duck on DuckDuckGo. He looks a bit minging. Actually, no, I don't like his face. I don't like ducks in bow ties. What's that all about? I'm thinking Brave's the way with the big brave lion. But grab your popcorn, everyone. We're about to. Oh, we lost Finn. We're about to premiere. We're about to premiere a movie. He's back. You prematurely.
My webcam is shit.
You've got to get a little Logitech one, and it's a ripper.
Yeah, I've got Microsoft HD, blah blah blah, 10,000 or whatever it is. Expensive, but shit. Don't buy it, anyone.
God damn it! All right, so Finn prematurely evacuated, but he's back. So grab your popcorn. We're going to premiere a movie now, and a bit of a blast from the past. Some of you might need some alcohol to watch this. Are you going to share the screen, Finn?
Yeah, I should be able to do that. Let's hope it doesn't cark out. Did you want me just to send you the link? That way, if mine carks it, it doesn't.
I have got the link in here. Dropped it in private chat. I'll grab it.
Okay. If you go to 5 minutes 36 seconds, I think that's where Kevin. This is from Friendly Geordies. Right. If anyone watches that, bloody hilarious.
Where's it from?
Friendly.
Australia's plot to kill YouTube. I've just subscribed to Friendly Geordies. So, how far in are we going? Oh, fuck, he's gone again. What was it? It was about 5 minutes. He's back, I think. Oh. Hang on a sec. Now he's a black screen. He's backstage. I can't add him. I mean, I've added him and he's just a little black screen. Ivor, you can be a Labor voter, but come on, Kevin, seriously. We had a Prime Minister called Kevin. Like, come on. Looking forward to having a panel chat too. We're just kind of bouncing ideas around, and I'm playing devil's avocado because I like to do that. Welcome back.
Hi everyone. This webcam is horrible. I'm literally all I'm doing is unplugging it and putting it back in, and it works. I don't know what the hell.
Right. Well, before you
5:36 is where it starts.
5:36. Okay.
Yeah. Again, if anyone's not a fan of Friendly Geordies, go recommend checking him out. He's quite hilarious most of the time.
I'm going to shrink us, expand him, and we're going to where? 5:36.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Hopefully we don't get pulled for this, but it's Kevin talking, so hopefully we get away with it.
Oh look, I'm not monetized, so I'm happy to. I'm just going to unhighlight Ivor's comment. All right, here we go, Groovers.
Can. If Labor was in power, not only would we have a water bomber fleet, an Aussie Tesla, COVID numbers like New Zealand, but we also might have even known about it. The likes of Michael West and Independent Australia, a counter-narrative was forming to rival the billionaire brainwashing network. If you think Kevin Rudd, scourge of Murdoch, would be pandering to his mortal enemy if he was still PM, in fact, why don't we just ask him what he thinks?
G'day, folks. K-Rudd here. I've been thinking a bit about this proposed new Australian news media bargaining code.
He looks like a garden gnome.
You know, I always get a little bit when
I'm liking the new beard. Looks
get excited about something, and they're really excited about this code. I get doubly suspicious when Scotty from marketing produces legislation to make the Murdoch media feel really happy. So I'm not a fan of Google and Facebook particularly, and I don't believe anyone's content should be nicked. But the bottom line is this: we've got to ask ourselves what's actually going on here. And what concerns me most as someone who's been in the political process a bit is, what's the public policy objective here? I would have thought it is something old-fashioned called media diversity. Now, I know the mob down at the ACCC, the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission, the ACCC, they've done a report on this. Fair enough. But frankly, when it comes to media diversity, I haven't been all that impressed with what the ACCC have already done. Remember, the ACCC approved Nine's purchase of the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, and the Australian Financial Review, what used to be called Fairfax. And this is the same Nine media mob that then hosted a fundraiser for Morrison and the Liberal Party just after the last election. And their chairman is Peter Costello. So much for media diversity with that one.
Yep.
Then, of course, we have the earlier ACCC decision, which is to authorise Murdoch to purchase Australian provincial newspapers. That's the mob who have owned and run regional newspapers right across Australia, particularly where I come from, up here in the People's Republic of Queensland. So what happened was virtually every paper in Queensland ends up in Murdoch's control, 13 of the 14 papers. Not much for media diversity there as well. So pardon me, ACCC, if I just get a bit sceptical about what happens with this proposal as well. I'm not the only one with a bit of scepticism here. I noticed that the union representing working journalists, the MEAA, has raised some concerns as well. And I'm kind of with them on two big doubts. Doubt number one, if Murdoch and the others are able to charge Google and Facebook for content, what happens to the money? Does all that money just go neatly into Rupert's pocket? Well, what about regional newspapers, local newspapers? What about public interest journalism? In other words, the stuff that actually keeps media diversity alive. Don't know the answer to that, but frankly, you look carefully at the legislation, it's just not clear at all. Problem number two, it's called the ABC. Now, the ABC, in my view, has been drifting slowly to the right for quite a long period of time as they try and suck up to the current government to preserve their funding base. But guess what? With this new news media bargaining code, the ABC doesn't get permission to charge for its content with Google or Facebook. So what happens? No money for the national broadcaster. So not only does Scotty from marketing cut the ABC's budget, not only does the ABC have to grovel to the government and therefore turn its agenda increasingly to the right to protect its remaining budget, it doesn't get to extract new funding from either Google or Facebook. So what does that do for media diversity? Bugger all, in my view. So the ABC, regional papers, local papers, and the question of public interest journalism. So folks, when we look at Scotty from Marketing's new law and Uncle Rupert getting really excited about it, I've got to say, I get really, really worried. And if it's good enough for the ACCC to conduct an inquiry into Google and Facebook, how about the ACCC conducting an inquiry into the Murdoch media themselves and the extent to which they have become a genuine cancer on our democracy? If they won't do it, it's time for a Royal Commission.
Everyone go follow King Ked's Twitter. All he does is sit there and dismember Murdoch propaganda and basically boss little haiku. Now that he has that sporting new beard that even Malcolm Turnbull has to pay, he really does look like MVP, keeping you up to date with exactly what the media machine's latest move is and deconstructing it in real time. So make sure you follow him before the great blackout of 2020. Hashtag just saying. Like the video.
Nice. Oh, fuck, there's Koshi. Oh, man. I always...
Great channel.
I see it is a great channel from that little bit I saw. Koshi's head always ruins my day. Thank God it's on TV. There was a lot to take out from that, but the thought of Rupert with the erection over this is the worst I took out of
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, some pretty
Well done.
interesting points there for sure. So I'm glad you found that, Finn.
It just came out today. One of my friends told me about it just before the live. So
I mean,
luckily they hit me up.
I'm happy to still try and play Devil's Avocado, but my avocado is starting to turn into guacamole, I think. For those of you who think that I'm saying something stupid and it's Devil's Advocate, I do know that. When I'm not being sort of serious, I do comedy, so I like to do Devil's Avocado. Because, you know, if you're going to have a discussion, you've got to try to, you know, have two sides, right? But if we all end up having a massive group hug and talking about things and all agreeing, that's good too. Do we want to run through the ABC thing, or do we want to get some people up on panel now to have a bit of a round table discussion and maybe throw some of the ABC's response in? Because Kevin doesn't give a flying flip about the ABC's response.
I'm inclined to agree with him because I've been reading through it all day today at work, so you know bits and pieces of it. But they flip flop quite a bit.
It's definitely right leaning for sure. It's definitely right
It's
leaning.
weird because it's both, and they don't really they take a side, but they then counter that side like the next paragraph. It's very strange.
Yeah,
That's an exaggeration. It's like 2 pages, and then it counters itself.
I would like to read it fully and maybe do a separate live where we can go through, you know, this one. And I'd really like to go through the regional outlets' responses as well.
Yeah, that's
we might drop the link into chat and see if we get a bit of a round table discussion happening, because there's certainly a lot of interesting comments happening in chat as well. It'd be nice to keep a bit of an idea on that. So there's the StreamYard link if anyone wants to grab it and come on up. We've got 19 people watching, which is fantastic. But yeah, Kevin in chat was being compared to Colonel Sanders or Papa Smurf. Even Rolf Harris was one of the things, one of the comparisons. So yeah, it'd be good to have a bit of a round table. Everyone's welcome to grab a link. I know that Seshoo indicated he's keen to come up. Jaguar Media, you're more than welcome. In fact, anyone is. Here's Sesh joining us now. It's the brunettes brigade this evening, which I love.
How you doing, mate?
Sesh, how you doing, Groover?
No audio, bro.
There we go. How's that?
That's better.
All right. I'm going good, guys. Thank you. Interesting discussion so far. I watched a little bit of your video, Finn, on your channel, the live stream you did with Zach. Yeah. So I watched a little bit of that. And yeah, interesting discussion so far. K-Rad had a couple of interesting points there.
Oh, great.
I did not
especially
expect that when I was
about
watching the video.
yeah, especially what I found interesting was the point that he made about the Murdochs essentially having the buying power to buy regional media, and then it doesn't matter, you know, like this whole thing. It won't matter because the Murdochs will just monopolize everything.
Yeah.
But if Murdoch does buy all the regional outlets, doesn't this code potentially mean those regional outlets will get an advantage over other regional outlets that are privately owned or not part of a little syndicate?
I don't think that's how they do it. I think when he buys them out, he'll either merge them with his pre-existing companies or he'll just collapse them, just remove them.
They'll mass produce the articles from the main newspapers and sort of publish them as their own in a way.
But there's still always going to be regional media, like, you know, your local newspaper and that sort of stuff.
I think this code, if it gets passed, is going to drop that quite a bit.
Well, there's already media outlets, unfortunately, small regional outlets that are unfortunately collapsing, largely due to COVID-19, which is sad. I did have a comment under one of my videos, and I did reach out to this guy, or I don't know actually if it's a man or a woman. I shouldn't say guy. Which was really sad. I read it. Just give me a minute, and I'll find the live that it was.
Yeah, Claire Bear's right. We've already lost the local papers. They're already bought it.
Yeah, so I had a person comment on under one of my videos, JSS Queensland. This has come a bit late for our local newspaper, the Tablelander, that printed its last paper on the 23rd of June 2020, just saying. I did reach out to JSS Queensland because it would have been fantastic to have someone come up and talk about it. But unfortunately, I think that's the way a lot of the small regional papers have already gone, and a lot more probably will.
But how much of that really is due to COVID right now? Because
I don't think they all are due to COVID, but I think COVID probably would have fucked up a few of them. It was probably already on the way out. I don't know. That's why, unfortunately, I didn't get any contact back, because I would have been keen to hear the story about what happened. Are you familiar with Tablelander, Finn, being a Queenslander?
No, never heard of it.
But yeah, see, Jason Dent saying, thinking about that, I haven't had a local paper in months. I mean, I personally don't buy the main papers here. I do read the little free community ones because they're kind of relevant to me, but all of my news absorption comes from online. But again, I go to specific websites and news sources that I personally like.
How many of those sources are local?
Well, I actually do a lot of overseas, but not your big sort of CNN, Reuters kind of ones. But I do read a lot of local, or Australian at least, media content as well. I mean, do you guys read the Batuta Advocate?
I can't say I do, Tori.
What about you, Sesh? Do you read much local stuff?
Me?
Yeah.
I pick up, a local paper here and there, every now and then, just see what's going on. Nothing's really going on except the lockdown now. So,
yeah.
Do
you think it'd be more than 5% of what you consume media-wise?
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of my media consumption is probably, well, it's kind of like it's American, British, Australian, some Canadian. I keep up to date with China, and some of the Southeast Asian stuff that's going on, the trade war between the US and China. I used to keep more tabs on Russia, but they're not quite so relevant right now.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point that Ivor's just made. We all went online, and now we're crying because we didn't support the little guys.
That's true. Yeah.
I think the little guys have survived online, though. The little guys are still out there. Like,
some of them have.
Who are we? We're not really anyone, and we're reaching people right now. And who's to say how many of us there are that we don't know about? There could be 1,000 of us having the same conversation right now.
Correct.
That's a point that I'd like to bring up. In Google's letter, they said that it's going to affect the way that we, as little guys, use our internet. So how exactly is that going to change?
Yeah, well, they didn't really say too much in there. What I think it's going to be, though, is that we will never come up. We will never come up in the searches. It'll just be bombarded with clickbait, essentially. What I honestly think is going to happen, just based on previous experience from what I've seen so far.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
I don't come up anyway. I have 180 subscribers.
Oh, me either. But what'll happen is that over time, let's say in 10 years' time, Sesh, you could have quite a bit more followers, and they won't prop you up then. It'll be nothing. It'll keep you down. What I have a feeling is going to happen, what I have a very sneaking suspicion of, is that all these local medias are going to get bought up by the big medias. And all these smaller companies are then going to get slammed onto the top of the algorithms, onto the top of the search results. So that what happens is when you end up searching for them, it comes back with all these different news media sites, which you think are different sites, but they're all owned by the one conglomerate. And it's just going to be this spam of what we're searching for that day or for you individually. And it's going to be tailored to you. And it's never going to be the actual thing you're looking for. It's going to be thousands of pages of spam that's completely irrelevant to anything you actually want to know. This is my biggest fear about this whole thing.
I mean, aren't there industry standards to like prevent that sort of thing? I mean, the ethical, what is it? Well, as ethics in journalism, ethical journalism. Like, don't they have a responsibility? Like, they would have the responsibility not to just monopolize one story for everywhere.
Koshi is one of the most watched people in Australia.
I know, and I hate that.
Argue that, yeah.
Disgusting.
Where's your morals in that? He should not fucking be there. Neither should any of the other people around the same show styles as his. But yeah, they are. So the ethics is gone. The ethics is already taken out of it. It's just going to get worse from here.
Just on all the algorithm stuff, I mean, this isn't a new concept that's emerged because of this code. We're already little guinea pigs in the algorithm world. For how many years have people been freaking out that they've had a conversation with someone in their family about thinking about going to the Maldives for a holiday, and the next thing there's an ad to go to the Maldives popping up on Facebook. This algorithm stuff isn't new.
Well, that's why I got rid of Facebook so long ago.
Yeah, same. Exactly.
But so this isn't something this code is going to create. And again, it goes back to that
Jason
earlier that see you, Jason, have a good day at work, Groover. But it does again go back to this thing about the discerning consumer, right? So the people that are watching Koshi already, this code isn't going to change the fact that they still watch Koshi. They're still going to watch him.
Well, I think that's a very good
change. Sorry, you go, Seshoo.
Sorry, Finn. I think that's a very good point. I don't think there are really many of us like that anymore. They just imbibe that shit and vomit it out. I mean, it's no small wonder why we've got so many social justice warriors running around these days.
That's right. And it goes back to George Orwell in 1984, and it's all about governments dumbing down the population. And you just have to look at Australia and the baby bonus and what that did.
The discerning consumer doesn't really exist anymore.
Well, I think the discerning consumers still do exist, and that's why with this particular code, how is it going to impact the discerning consumer and the way they access information?
Well, isn't it going to just continue to dumb people down? I mean, make them worse. In a way, by shielding them from other stories, other perspectives, other ideas.
Well, it's not even shielding them; it's just blocking every other opinion out there except the main opinion, the legacy opinion, which is the bullshit opinion.
I mean, isn't this the path to 1984, Tori?
Well, yeah, it is, and it's been it's been happening for a long time. I mean, CCTV footage is also a huge aspect of 1984, and that we've had CCTV around for a long time as well. I mean, this stuff's been going on for decades.
Have you guys heard of the smart cities?
Ow! Yeah. Sorry, I just got attacked.
Hey, Biscuit.
Finn hasn't met Biscuit yet. I rescued a 9-year-old, almost 10 in October.
Oh, wow.
Feline with a massive personality, and she used to be twice the size that she is. But when I go live, she likes to insert her claws into my muffin top, and it's a very delightful sensation. And the only way I can get it is to bribe her with food. So give me a moment. I'm going to throw some random questions into this conversation. So the next one I want to ask is, yes, the governments around the world have been dumbing down populations for a long time. That's a given, and this is just another example of that sort of shit going on potentially. Here's a new question. Do you think the code is going to make a difference as far as how much genuine Australian content we start to see on social media platforms or not? And I'll just feed this.
I missed the first part of that. Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, so I think with the Big Brother thing, we've already kind of, that's been happening for a long time, and this is potentially another step in that direction. So that was a little wrap on that thing. So the next question is, do you think this code has the potential to increase the amount of actual Australian content that we're going to start seeing on social media platforms and also popping up in search engines?
Yeah. Do you mind if I take this one first? Is that right?
Go for it.
Yeah. I think the amount of Australian content is going to severely drop because I think it's going to be the legacy media that takes over because they're going to be the only ones being able to fund it. They're going to have access to the algorithms, which no one else is going to have access to. It's not like the algorithms are going to get released to everyone and then we're all able to capitalize on because they're not going to release that power. There's no way. There's no way.
I mean, but why only to the legacy media and not to everyone else? Why would Google release it to only them and not other bidders?
Because they're forced to.
By this.
I think what will happen in this code is they will force them to pass it on to any of the news, the NMBs, and anyone who's not an NMB won't get access to it. That's why. And then I think because it's going to be just the NMBs, which, who determines that, then that is just going to get pumped at the beginning. So I think anything that isn't legacy media is not going to make it into the search results.
All right. Well, let's assume for a minute that there's a small, a small newspaper somewhere. They've got an online presence. They're making 151,000 K in profit per year. They finally qualify for this code, and then all of a sudden you see their content more often on front pages and stuff like that, and they're not even towing the line of the party or whatever is going on. They're like an independent journalism company, and they're giving their perspective and their views, and they get more of a voice. Is that potential? That could potentially happen. I don't know how likely.
I doubt it.
But is that not a potential?
No. Let me make this very clear. I would love that to be the case. That would be the ideal world. That would be the perfect scenario. However, that's not going to happen because
what about
no definition like in any of the codes? Well, there's no definition in any of the codes that have come out so far to say what can remove you from the list. So at the moment, there is nothing to say that they can't remove you whenever they want for no reason.
It would be presumed that they no longer fit into the guidelines of Australian media for Australians, those 4 points in that guideline. Mm-hmm. If they don't qualify for that anymore, then they can be removed, and they ought to be, right?
Well, here's the thing:
if they no longer qualify, if they actually start doing it instead of Australian content, they start doing American content or British content. Mm-hmm. Should they not be able to be removed for that?
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. What my issue is that it doesn't say on there anywhere. I've read through all of it. It doesn't say anywhere what the exact things are that can force them to be removed, which means just because they pass those 4 criteria to get in doesn't mean they're immediately locked in there.
There should be a stipulation that says that if they don't no longer qualify for those 4 points, then they are no longer qualified to be part of it. Correct. They can be removed.
That's not in there. It's not in there.
Well, it should be then.
It should be, yes.
And I thought the code, though, I know that Kevin Rudd was sort of dispelling the whole public interest journalism kind of thing. A lot of the bidding criteria does specifically relate to Australian content, and for the smaller outlets, the code.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I just saw Iva's comment in the chat.
I'm not watching chat at the moment. I'm just going to try and find something that I saw in the ACCC documentation. But the code does allow small media outlets to form what they refer to as collective groups, which means that they can all come together and negotiate with the digital platforms as a group as well. And that provision wouldn't just be sitting in the draft code for no reason.
Yeah, I think that's in there for later on when they buy them out. But here's a question then, back on that. If you've got let's say a real right-wing media source and a real left-wing media source, do you expect those guys to combine to then take it forward and be part of the same group? There's no way. There's no way. So then they won't be registered. It'll cause more of a divide. You might get the groups in the middle. You might get them to join up and become. But you won't get
the independents. Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way.
Well, then you got to ask, like, how?
I'm not saying there's no way. There's very little chance. Very little chance.
Right. Okay. I more or less agree with you on that point. But then you got to ask, how big is the middle and how big are the fringes? You know.
Correct.
So.
And it all hinges on the wording as well, like things like topics that will incite public debate and progressing towards making informed democratic decisions. And
that argument.
Yeah, informed. Informed by whom precisely?
Exactly. Yeah. Who's determining?
I mean, I just watched some bloody brilliant propaganda today on 9 News. You know.
Just before you go into that too, though, I did want to point out though that another thing that's in the code as well, and I do feel like pulling it up, but I'm trying to remember all of this from memory. But I thought another one of the criteria with all of this was just on that example about, you know, when you've got outlets on the left and the right, that one of the things this hinges on too is sort of editorial independence. Like it was. You know, so the sort of hardcore political topics, technically, according to the code, aren't even considered for this. That was my reading of it. Did the ABC comment on that in their response? Finn, do you know?
Yeah, they've got a thing on page 6 where they talk about one potential risk. I'll read it out. I don't know what your people like for reading stuff out. Mine hate it, but I'll do it anyway.
I can share it. I can share it. Have you seen
we read stuff all the time, don't we, Tori?
We do. And I can put it up on the screen as well. So just give me a sec. And if you want to, what's it going to come up as? Why isn't the icon showing?
So the second paragraph on page 6. Very interesting.
For some reason, the ABC icon, I had it open just before.
I'll link it in the chat.
But
live stream.
This is doing my head in because, sorry, here we go. Right, so it's when I'm just screen sharing, I've got to look for a document called date because that's an obvious thing to be looking for, right? Date. Okay, here we go. Date. Got it. Right. Now I'm just going to make sure. Yeah, we're here. So do you want me to scroll down to which paragraph? No, Finn?
Second paragraph, page 6.
Page 6, second paragraph?
Yeah. Yeah. So one potential risk of this framework. However, is that it can leave some news organizations, for example, smaller news media organizations, disadvantaged in the terms of conditions they are able to extract in their negotiations with Google and Facebook, and can distort or harm competition. So no, I don't think it's going to benefit the smaller companies at all.
Do they go into, I mean, I found the stuff they wrote about the algorithms and stuff pretty interesting. Did they go into anything in this document about Australian content?
Not from memory, just they're talking about themselves.
But they do talk about regional further on somewhere too, from memory. There's a sharing of user data, algorithms. I thought they covered regional.
Sorry, Finn, where did you share this?
In the live chat.
Are you modded? I don't know if you can put links in chat if you're not modded.
Yeah, drop it in the private chat. Actually, hang on. I'll go to YouTube and make you a mod. Can you drop a comment in there, Finn, and I'll give you a wrench. I'll wrench you up, and then you can start dropping links all over the place. Oh, Tina N, you've got one more round to go. Then you're on the road to recovery. Awesome. All right. Hey, D90 Bell. Right, you've got a wrench in, so you can. And hi, Tina too. Glad to hear that you're. Hey, Mel.
Hey, Mel.
A few people have snuck in since I last had a look at chats. Good to see you, Groovers.
Hey, D90.
Yeah,
Scout
D90.
Inquirer.
Scout Inquirer. I did say hi to Scout in chat a bit earlier, but good to see you all here, groovy groovers. So with the ABC's response, it is very right-leaning for them.
Yeah.
More so than
you'd think.
You mentioned before, Finn, that there are sort of pros and con type responses in this. In some instances, they're sort of favouring it or think it's okay, and in others, they're not. Do you want to maybe just raise a couple of those points, like one of their things where they seem okay with it, and then one where they seem a little bit concerned? If anything,
I didn't take note of them. I'd have to reread it again. It's not so much pros and cons of it. It's just they're countering themselves in their arguments. They do it about 2 or 3 times. So not a lot.
It's easy to do when it's easy to do when you're not a party to this proposed code, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's there's one part in there, I should have written it down. It's about the money, and they're like, oh, we don't care what the money is. But then it's like 2 paragraphs later, it's like, oh, but it would be nice if we could, get all the money.
I just noticed that actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I might scroll down because I do think I think these 2 elements have certainly been the subject of a lot of discussion for the 4 or 5 channels that have been talking about this. But the algorithms and the data, I do think that they're comments, at least in terms of the reality of media outlets at the moment and how this sort of information is already being used, is pretty interesting. For people that aren't kind of aware of it. What the ABC is saying in their response is that they very happily use social media networks, and they almost sound sort of disgustingly comfortable with it, really. Well, no, not disgustingly, but it's almost a bit gushy, I thought. They're almost like, yeah, we love it. It's all fabulous and so on. But when you actually go down to the little bullet points, you can see, and everyone feel free to read this entire document later, and I'm sorry that I haven't had a chance to fully research it or read it all today. I'm in the middle of studying the central nervous system, which weirdly I'm finding clearer to understand than this shit. But
could not written by lawyers. No offense.
I haven't studied it since high school biology, but some of the terminology in that I read and know exactly what it means. With some of this, I'm like, what the fuck? If you have a look at the first bullet,
imagine how I feel. I got no lawyer background and I'm trying to read this stuff. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. That's where the initial alerts and warnings from Google and YouTube, I think, was so irresponsible, because they dumped it down significantly. They didn't provide any links to any actual, even to the ACCC website. I mean, they're now doing all of that. They've backpedaled. They've even started sharing links to sort of independent journalist commentary on it. Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, I clicked on it. It's and it's a really shitty site. It's called Stratechery or something. Fuck, I don't even know how to pronounce it. But if you start reading it and then click on the link, which they recommend, and then you go back to that page, you're suddenly behind, like there's a paywall, which I just found ironic. It's like Google's going, check out this independent journalist's views on this, And it's a monetized website where, yeah, if you basically get one click to read it, and if you go to one of the links and try to go back to it, you've got to subscribe.
Very
So
strange. What about do you think about if this passes, Google forcing a subscription base? I mean, you have to pay to use it.
Forcing a subscription in
So
Australia.
you can't get access to
Google
Google unless you pay for it. Yeah.
No, that would not fly, man. That would not fly.
Yeah.
No one would be like, I have to pay for Google. Anyone who uses the internet in Australia would be like, fuck that shit.
Yeah. And
you know,
It would collapse it.
Google actually had the opportunity to do that when they emerged on the market as the most proficient and effective search engine on the internet. They could have done it a long time ago, but the problem is now there's a lot of other search engines apart
if
from
they
big.
do that, everyone will just go to DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's other options now that are free.
And
so
let's not forget, Google is a company, they do want to make money. Australia's a big source of income for them.
Well, that's an interesting comment, because in the scheme of things, we're really a drop in the ocean. We're a country of 20 million, 25 million people. We're not actually.
We still trade. We still use. Everyone uses Google every day. There's 26 million of us. How many times do we use it every day? It was still a big market. I mean, not compared to maybe Southeast Asia, and those other places, but we still make money for them.
Yeah, we do. But we're still small fry compared to other countries that would be generating far more revenue for them.
Yeah.
Like that is the reality. Like, you can't compare the amount of money we generate for Google with the amount of money England generates for Google, for example, or Spain or Italy. Like, we're not on that playing field. Doesn't mean the dollars that we generate don't matter. Of course they do. But I think, in the
you think they'd just be like, let's just eat the loss and whatever.
Well, I actually think Google and Facebook are just going to say, like I said at the start with Finn, I think they're just going to take the same route as Amazon and go, we're not paying a cent, fuck yous all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Facebook in Australia no longer has David Koch's face on it when you log in for the first time in the morning. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so.
I would love Google to tell legacy media to fuck off. That would be the ideal scenario. I'd be like, all right, well, you guys can go create your own search engine, and you won't have access to ours, and see how your fucking business keeps going then.
But they're not going to do it.
Incredible, because then the intelligence of the entire Australian people would rise. But that's not going to happen.
It'd be sensational, but I think people have to remember too that what we're dealing with here, let's just call them the big four to keep it simple. But we've got Google, Facebook, Murdoch, Packer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all bad guys. They're all powerful. They're all richer than fucking anything else, Like, they're all on the same team. These guys are all in bed together. They're all the bad dudes. So, it's not like this isn't good versus evil.
Yeah. It's shit versus shit.
So yeah,
I think at this point it's
versus giant douche.
Yeah, exactly.
Australia
should all vote for the turd sandwich.
Turd sandwich.
We should rise up. We should. I've taken the screen off because I want to see your guys' faces. I think we should all rise up, and I don't even know what chat's talking about, but it'd be really nice to get some comments. Oh shit! I completely lost my screen then. From chat too, but it looks like I did warn you, Finn, that my crew are really lovely and they're all super supportive and into each other and care about each other. So you will see a lot of love being thrown around in my chat if you ever come over again, or even this evening, which is great.
Yeah. I was in the past too videos.
Hey,
I was in the past too.
Yeah, there's good on this topic, not the scam baiting.
Scam baiting ones are good.
But yeah, there's a lot of love, which is great. I don't know. I'm just going to say I love all of you to everyone in chat because I can't work out who's. Hey, Ruth, good to see you, Groover. I don't know. Melmo doesn't like any of us, and fuck his. So, yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, could this code inadvertently, again, I'm playing devil's avocado here. I don't believe what's about to come out of my mouth at all. Could this code inadvertently destroy all four of them and Australia becomes a new nation free of... No.
I think you might actually be onto something, because if this code passes and all of Google starts for the first 5 pages becomes just bullshit ads, who's going to go to that? No one. No one's going to fucking go to that. Everyone's going to hit up DuckDuckGo or an alternative.
Yeah.
Maybe a year, maybe 2 years, but after 3 years of that, there's not going to be anyone left on that. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, which again is the ideal scenario. Like in an ideal world, the reality is they're all in a daisy chain, doofing each other up the butt, really, aren't they? Including, you might as well throw the federal government into the mix as well.
Yeah, well, they're just legacy media's people now, you know.
Yeah,
how many are working for the same people?
And now I've got a visual of a daisy chain with Rupert Murdoch naked. I really wish I hadn't said that, but but in an ideal world, it wouldn't.
Why do you do this to yourself?
I'm doing it to everyone. I'm sharing is caring. Hit the thumbs up, bitches, says Mel, and she said, "Can we unmod Claire again?" I believe.
What's with all that hate on Claire?
No, they know it's hilarious. They've got this brilliant banter that goes backwards and forwards. It's gold. A lot of love. Like I said, there's all good fun. But yeah, I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it, if this code kind of accidentally sort of gave all these little tiny independent journalists a powerful voice suddenly in Australia.
Yeah, and then they suddenly become legacy media. And the cycle continues.
I mean, I think part of it too is it's so hard to know really what this code is going to be like till we see it operating. And the risk is it's got to all those amendments have to pass Parliament for anyone to get an idea. It's kind of, yeah, it's sort of like, I'm trying to think of another analogy, but it's, you know, I'm big on try before you buy kind of stuff. And it's sort of like, what's a good analogy?
We kind of have to buy before we try this time.
Yeah.
You know, we have to fully commit to this before we get to see what it's going to be like, which is...
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Me either.
How broad ranging is it? We really don't know. You know, like how
far as they can. That's what
how much bidding is going to happen? How many negotiations?
Probably not much. Probably not much if they buy out, you know, small independent journos. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then, but even how many negotiations are going to fail and it has to be arbitrated? How many penalties are going to be imposed? I did have an article up, and I've got so many windows open now, it's insane. But there was a really interesting article that I read, and I'm so sorry I can't give you the reference to it. But essentially, what it was saying is, if Google and Google, YouTube, Facebook breach it, the way the penalty clause is drafted, it could be as much as 10% of the income they generate within Australia. They could be fined.
Yeah,
well, if they don't make anything, they're not going to get fined anything.
That'd be interesting.
But I found that
I'd love to see the statistics on how much the news media businesses are actually drawing in for Google, because I have a feeling that they're making it out to be a lot higher than it actually is. I honestly do not think it would be that much of Google's income revenue stream. There's no way. At most, if you combined all of it, I doubt it would be 20%. I would be very surprised if it was close to that or more than that. And that's being fucking generous. If I was Google right now, if I was that Mel Silver lady, I would go and tell news media business they can start their own search engine. And if anyone wants to go access Australian news, you know, then you can go to the Australian search whatever and search for your stories on there. But no one's going to do that because you go to Google to get the good stuff. You don't go to Google to get the main legacy media shit. This is not why people go there.
You know what? That could you imagine if that was like Packer Murdoch's game? Force everyone onto these Australian media sites because they have to pay for Google, but you can access this one for free, but it's all our stories. And you get told what we tell you.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that's what their game is?
I'm very worried about that. Yeah.
I've just found the penalty.
Yeah, me either. It seems very in their wheelhouse of doing that. Very, very in their wheelhouse.
I know that we've sort of moved on a little bit, but I just found the document that I've got two browsers. The penalties for any parties that breach this code, and that's basically the Australian news businesses or the digital platforms. If the ACCC has reasonable grounds to believe any parties contravened the provisions of the code, they can issue notices of 600 penalty units, which is the equivalent of $133,200. And if the ACCC considers initiating court proceedings, the maximum penalties would be greater of either $1, $10 million, 2, 3 times the benefit obtained from the conduct, if it can be calculated, or 3, 10% of the digital platform's annual turnover in Australia in the last 12 months.
I doubt it'll be that last one because, they don't earn anything. That's why they pay very little tax. So I don't think they'll go with that option.
Yeah, if anything, it'd be option 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon if it can be calculable, but if not, then it's back to the 10 million, which
does it say, did you say more than 10 million? Greater than 10 million?
It says the maximum penalties would be greater of either, and then it's got those 3. So whichever one's the biggest one, that's the one they're going to ream them up the bum with.
And they could do that for potentially not telling them about an algorithm change. That could ensue a fine, could it?
What was that?
So if Google changes the algorithm for the day and they fail to update legacy media, is that a $10 million fine right there?
I reckon that was pretty clearly sort of set out, wasn't it? In the that goes back to the whole sort of algorithm transparency stuff. Let me just have a look. I'm just reading it. It's talking about the actual payment, the minimum standards. It doesn't actually. It just says the code requires the digital platforms to maintain transparency in terms of information which is derived out of the user engagement with the digital platforms. Further, digital platforms are also required to share the proposal on recognising the original news content on that platform, provide flexible user comment moderation tools for news media businesses, and the media businesses are empowered to prevent the sharing of their content on any digital platform. That's really the only paragraph in the penalties clause that sort of hinges on that. That is one point, though, that I find really interesting, because one thing that has pissed me off about mainstream media outlets online historically is it's very rare that you're able to put comments under anything.
That's actually in the ABC response. They want to have it so that they can never have comments in their videos. Anything they upload, they want to completely disable, which at the moment, a lot of the stuff that they put up, Google doesn't actually let them disable the comments. So you can have, genuine people's, you can have trolls, but you can have genuine people's input into it. And ABC in that letter, I can't remember which page it is, I can look it up, but they want to make sure that they can have full control of the comments and can turn it off whenever they want.
I think that's shit, because that goes completely against this whole public interest journalism and putting content up
and discussion of, what did they say? Discussion of
it's on page 10.
Public discussion for the purpose of healthy democracy or whatever the fuck they said.
In that ABC's response, I'll read it out. It goes, disable comments on specific/all posts on news media businesses' social media pages. First up point. Second one is temporarily disable pre-moderate comments during high volume scenarios. And second one is engage in pre-moderation at page level, enabling rostered moderators to manually approve what is seen by the public. So they want full control of what comments are added on.
Yeah, and that goes completely against the whole point of the Australian content thing, that the eligible media businesses, the news content they produce has to investigate and explain issues of public significance for Australians, issues that engage Australians in public debate and inform democratic decision-making.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, or issues relating to community and local events. And the thing with these bloody mainstream media outlets that you can't already comment, and even if you go to any news channels on YouTube, for example, I mean, I was in a what's the show? It wasn't Four Corners. I was in an ABC premiere of a show that was going live that night, but we all got to see it like before it actually went live, and the commenting was on and chat went ballistic and had a ball. It was so exciting to be watching a live premiere of something and being able to comment in chat, because so many news outlets on YouTube, the chat's disabled. And the same with the mainstream media online platforms. You know, if you're on 9.com.au, for argument's sake, and there's an article that you read and you get fired up about it and want to comment, you can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's shit. You know, put on moderators, get rid of trolls. But this, I mean, again, there's these two bloody positions that are just
counter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very sus. It's like they want to have discussion that's approved by them, but they don't want any other discussion.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, fuck off. Like this is the internet. This is the place of everyone. So everyone.
This is where us little small channels are going to start streaming other news outlets, and because we're not monetized. And although I wouldn't be surprised if an ABC or a Channel 9 or whatever did actually copyright strike a channel for doing it, but whether or not that would happen to a channel that's not monetized or not, but that's what's going to happen. People are going to start streaming shit so that there's an open forum for everyone to talk about it.
Yeah, well, you know, there's still such a thing as fair use in Australia as well. So
Correct.
We can do that for commentary or, you know, discussion purposes. So if they want to try that, they're welcome to. But
bring it on.
Yeah. Fuck them. Like, I want to maximize free speech as much as we can have it, because it's not constitutionally protected in Australia, but we have to try to maximize it any way we can anyhow, you know?
Correct.
So I like the premise of this code, because the premise is to help the little guys get a voice, right? Or be heard more, right? Which is better, I think, for everyone. But just in practicality, I agree with you, Finn. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to be manipulated and used the way that these large companies want it to be used, and get the best that they possibly can out of this. Because, you know, they're businesses, they're companies, they want to make money as much money as possible. So
in every way.
Yeah.
It's walking sheep's clothing legislation. That's, you know.
It's Trojan horsey. It's very, very Trojan horsey.
Yeah. Help out the little guy. Meanwhile, all of our big businesses are actually going to take over. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, the 88 regional journalists, they commented on it. They mentioned it 2 or 3 times in their response. ABC's mentioned it in their response. A couple of the others mentioned it in theirs. In Google's response, they mention it. So, I mean, they're all very worried about it, which is contrary to the code, because if the code, that is its purpose, then it shouldn't be having these worries. They shouldn't be in there. But they are, because it's very obvious. be used.
Yeah, that's why I regret that I haven't been able to read the regional publications response, Finn,
Very
and would really like to, because I was surprised that just a little bit of your live that I was listening to, you know, that they're unhappy with it, because like we're all saying right now, you would normally think that this would have them all dancing in the streets going woohoo, but again, you know, until this is actually implemented, but I mean, I'm also, the cynical side of me for this discussion is thinking what really is going to change, except that the big media outlets are going to be more controlled, more regulated in how much money's flying around.
I think there'll be a dramatic loss of knowledge. I think the majority of knowledge that we seek out now is going to disappear, and it's all going to get replaced by legacy media's, you know, ideas of what should be.
Yeah, I kind of think that it might be diluted a little bit down, but I don't think it's going to be completely inaccessible or page 300 on Google. I think people are going to start jumping onto different search engines.
Yeah, that's exactly what it should be. Yeah.
But I also don't think, I still think that Google and Facebook are going to be like, we're not getting into these bidding wars. We're not, you know, I can still see them going, fuck it, we'll go the Amazon route as well.
I hope they do that. I mean,
I
do. Pardon?
Google, are you serious?
Hey?
I don't think they'll put a paywall on Google. I think they'll tell the news media businesses, the legacy medias, to fuck off and don't use their search engine. That's what I think. If they keep pushing Google with this shit, I think that's what Google's going to tell them to do. Be like, okay, you can go use Bing, you can go use the other search engines. You're not allowed on ours.
One thing I want to know, and I don't know how to find it, is I want to know how much content that we're all currently seeing with Google, Facebook, whatever, is actually Australian at the moment, because the bulk of the media that's consumed in Australia isn't Australian.
Yeah, no way.
You know, so yeah, I'd love to try and find out what the actual, you know, why isn't that being regulated too?
Well, it's all owned by the same person. That's why. Well, 5 people own all of the media, which is, you know, and that's one of the other things that really annoys me out of that paper is they say, you know, making the playing surface level again for everyone, and it's like it hasn't been like that in Australia for a long, long time. The thing that made it level is the introduction of the internet that allowed normal people to get out there and normal people's voices to be heard. That was the level playing field.
Yeah.
Now,
Exactly.
code passes, that's going to take all that power that the individual just got, and that's going to put it back in the hands of the legacy media.
But
you can't walk down the street and have people think that it's not all owned by the same people. Everyone is fully aware of what the game is that's being played. Everyone.
But I mean, so are our radio stations. You know, radio stations are owned by networks. So the radio station I did breakfast radio for, when I started working in there, it was the last independent commercial radio station in Australia. And so we had complete control over our content. It was absolutely fantastic. Didn't make the owners a fucking cent, but it was a brilliant radio station with a lot of great comedy and creative stuff happening on it. And also just being the last independent commercial radio station made it pretty cool. Anyway, it got bought out by a network, and the philosophy of that network is, if you live in Woolloomooloo and you go to Hobart for a holiday, you can drive around Hobart and listen to our station in Hobart, and you'll feel like you're still at home. They worked really hard to make every single station sound exactly the same, and
talk about the same stuff, share the same news,
play the same music,
play the same songs,
same wacky characters in the breakfast show. You know, sort of failed My Kitchen Rules on MasterChef contestants, all of that sort of shit. But yeah, and, you know, and I stopped working for them back in 2009. Like, that kind of dumbing down of every form of media has been happening for a long time. But that then brings to the whole point of this code and everything happening now. Like, it's almost like the ACCC saying, Google and Facebook, you've gotten too big for your boots. We're going to reel it back in. but they've had free reign for fucking decades.
Yeah.
Mm.
I honestly think what's happened is all of legacy media's friends in the ACCC, etc., have realised that they're losing viewers, that their media is dying because no one's going to it anymore because it's full of garbage, and people are going online to, let's say, Twitter, for example, where you can go and follow the exact person you want. You go follow Matt Taibbi, you can go follow anyone, the president. You can go follow, and you don't have to hear it from someone else. You can hear it direct from the source.
Yeah, go straight.
Yeah.
You know, you're reading a book
Exactly.
that you love, you can tweet your awesome. Yeah, it's brilliant.
That's what Google is allowing as well. Google built that. So now you can go on random people's websites and hear their opinion. And I genuinely think that the legacy media is very scared of that. There was another report, I can't remember which article it was in. It's in one of my videos. And
well, then why does Google keep censoring different opinions?
Well, that's
I mean, I have a big problem with what Google is doing as well, and removing any kind of power from Google, I think, is a good thing.
I don't think it's removing power. I don't think it's removing power.
Not removing, like lessening their stranglehold, their iron fist.
I don't think it's doing that. I don't think this code's doing
that. Well, this may not be. Yeah, this may
Mm-hmm.
not be doing that, but anything that does do that, I'm in favor of.
Likewise, yeah. Same. What I think this code is doing, though, is your idea is removing that power, but then putting it in the hands of the media. Mm-hmm. And it's going to keep, Google's still going to have that power, but now legacy media is going to have that power as well, which I think is fucking scary. That is a horrible thing to have going. But back to my earlier point, is that these companies are dying. There was one point in there, I wish I could remember where it was from. It said because of Google's access to be able to print anyone's opinion, because they can, anyone who's got an opinion that's sound and makes sense is going to get people going to it and viewing it because it's logical, it makes sense, it's an actual legit piece of knowledge you can go access. Because of that, the legacy media saw a drop of, in some cases, it said there, in 40 to 50% less viewers. Okay, that is a dying media. That media is gone. Okay, if you're dropping by 50% because just average people out there are releasing their own content and taking away from yours, that's because your content is shit. That is the only reason. If your content was still good, people would keep going to that and that would survive. And the shit that is shit would fail, which is what's happening. And it's the legacy media's last grab at trying to get control before they go under, which is.
But at the very same time, Google is like shadow banning those kinds of people, those different opinions. You know, and sometimes not even shadow banning, just outright banning. I'm pretty sure, what's his name, got banned off Twitter today, Twitter, YouTube, or something. He got fucking cut.
Who was it?
Because Unity, I think his name was. Okay. Anyway.
So how?
Let me make this clear. I agree with you. Google should not be shadow banning. They should not be doing that. But that's a separate conversation to what this code is. And I'm fully on board with you. I think they should not be fucking doing that. They're American. It's freedom of speech. If someone comes up and says, "Yo, we're Australian, we don't like your laws," fuck you. Like, we're American. It's an American company. Tell everyone to go fuck themselves. You've got freedom of speech. It's your first fucking amendment. Come on.
Well, on that, I'm moving on.
Sorry, go on.
I'm writing little points down because I'm like enjoying playing a kind of mediator role. While we're on that topic, let's talk about not that there's a lot of people being overly vocal about this proposed code, but
which is strange. I find that strange.
Well, yeah, I know that you do, and we've sort of talked about it a bit in emails, and I've also heard you talking about it on your channel. And I had a thought today when I was at the gym about why there hasn't been, because I think that people don't, like little tiny YouTube creators, or not even little tiny ones, but Australian YouTube creators don't think that this is going to impact on them in any way, shape or form. They've probably read the most recent updates from Google that does send you off to the ACCC website, and they're probably just reading it all and going, what's this got to do with me going live on a Sunday cooking peanut butter cookies to 20 people or with 6 people watching. I think that's why people aren't being vocal about it, because they don't think that it has any impact or any bearing on them or their little channel. So that leads to this question: how do you think it will impact small YouTube creators?
If it gets passed,
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to reach a threshold, and then it'll be capped at that threshold. They won't be able to pass it, which I think inevitably will lead to the death of YouTube, and DTube and whatever the other ones are that pop up in its place will start.
RedTube?
Whatever. I mean, that's already got a big base, I think. But I think all the alternatives will start funneling off all the people, so they can actually get the promotion throughout it.
You're terrible, Muriel.
So let's all move to Twitch then and hang out on Twitter, right? But on that too, just still talking about, I don't fully comprehend how it's going to impact small YouTube creators at all. Maybe I'm just naively plodding along.
If the top 50 results are the smaller journalists which have been bought out by the main journalists, then the results are always going to be those. There's never going to be anything out of the approved or the legacy's mindset, essentially.
But that's only going to really be relevant for YouTube channels that are sort of doing things like we are right now, like.
It'll be relevant to all of them because they will know the algorithms before they change. They'll know the access of everyone's data, which means they'll know what people are searching for that day, and they will be able to tailor their videos.
I think Tori means it's not relevant in the sense that, we do scam baiting and cooking videos and shit like that. We're never going to be big. I do philosophy videos. Philosophy videos are never going to be big,
It's relative, man. Like,
so I think this is what Tori's getting at. Like, what relevance does it really have to her and I?
Because it will permanently stop all new viewers because they won't be able to get you in the search view. They'll be linked to someone else.
But the thing is,
why?
Put a great point.
I still don't understand why, because I don't, make past that cap, 150K. Like, beyond then, like before then, I mean, you have to be a pretty big channel to be making that much money off ad revenue, So.
Okay. You're saying though that your channel's never going to climb. You're saying.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's never going to climb. I'm just saying it's never going to be big enough to really qualify for this this act.
You don't know that. You don't know that. And
I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be. I don't have that ambition for it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, then the code's not going to affect you then, because the code is going to cap you. And if you're not worried about being capped, then you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are worried about
where is that cap? Where is that cap, do you think, and why? Why would it get capped? How would you not be able to?
It'll get capped because all the results are going to be the legacy media results.
No, I mean, like, how can you can still share your stuff like on other platforms, and this is what Tim Pool does, right? Because he's already working against the algorithm, so he gets his people to share it around. Like, you can
still search for Tim Pool. You can still search for it. You don't have to wait. You can search for Tim Pool.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
You can be sent his stuff. Sure, you can click on those links, but if you want to go search yourself, you can find your own videos. If this comes through, you can search all you want, but it's never going to come back with Tim Pool. It'll come back with all the articles talking negative about Tim Pool because they don't fucking like it. That's what it'll display when you search for it. Or you type in Seshoo online and it's going to come up, all the negative shit about you.
I don't think I've got one subscriber who found me by typing something into YouTube and my channel popped up.
I did.
You did, true.
That's exactly how I found it.
Sorry, I do. I've got one subscriber who does it. But for the most part, again, we're not really going to know the relevance of this till it's up and running. But also another little question that I think is sort of interesting, and this again goes to why YouTubers aren't really being vocal about it, because there's already things like Mel pointed out in chat that YouTube's already done a lot of stuff to stop building channels long before this these proposed amendments came in. And one of the biggest changes, which has really made it hard to build channels, is historically, if you were watching a creator live and people were in chat and someone in chat, and this is possibly how Mel and I actually met, because I still can't quite remember how we did actually meet. But if someone said something and you thought it was funny, you used to be able to the right of their name, click the 3 little dots, and in the drop down, it'd take you to their channel and you could subscribe. And they took that feature away. So channels like mine have sort of, although I'm climbing slowly and, you know, Social Blade says I'll get to 1,000 by 2026 or whatever, it's much harder now to build a channel because YouTube took that feature away long before this code. Like this was YouTube's own decision, and it's absolutely fucked up anyone building a channel. So, you know, are people not really that interested in commenting about it because they're already kind of feeling a bit reamed by the whole thing anyway, and people are just, you know, like,
I think it's got a lot to do with the adpocalypse from a few years ago, and we're kind of feeling the effects now. Advertisers are only supporting mainstream outlets and that sort of thing. So smaller channels are just finding it harder to get monetized, to make a living off YouTube, to get ad revenue. And then, yeah, sharing their shit around has become much harder as well. You know, and I think it was all in an attempt by Google to lower their costs and increase their ad revenue by basically, you know, not having to monetize so many channels. And
I assume their costs for YouTube would be quite low, though. I mean, they just
but like overall, like because of the adpocalypse and how it all went down, they lost a ton of money, right? So they had to find some way to kind of recoup a little bit, and you know, having less channels monetized means not having to share as much of the profit and the cost for, you know, all that other shit. So they might have shortened their long-term gains, but for the meantime, this was like immediately after the adpocalypse with Steven Crowder and what's his name, Carlos Maza, and that when advertisers basically pulled all their, you know, revenue, like all their advertising money from YouTube altogether, and then YouTube had to kind of coax them back. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. This is, I think, this is what we're seeing as the repercussions for what happened back then. You know, so I don't know. Growing a channel, it's not as big of a ambition as it used to be, like, you know, 5-10 years ago, when everyone's like, I want to be a, you know, what do they call it, social media influencer and shit like that. You know, that's what I think anyway.
I think anyone that's trying to be that is going to fail. People can tell those kind of people very easily, and anyone that's trying to be that, they're never going to take off. I think the reason your channel is doing so well is because you're talking real shit, and people are here to listen. And we've got another person, Tina N. She also found you by searching for it. So
I just saw that. I was feeling like a dick for saying. So I've probably got a handful, which is fantastic to know. You know, there have been a lot of changes along the way with YouTube, and you know, and Mel had another comment too. Like, as a moderator, we used to be able to click go to channel, and you could tell straight away if it was a troll or not. So you know, that's sort of been a lot of changes that have made
it better for the trolls. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
But
yeah, they made it harder.
Go for it.
No, you finish up the session, then I'll ask my question.
That's all right. It doesn't matter. It was about the trolls.
Yeah, talk trolls. Come on, talk trolls, man.
Yeah,
Tale of Two Trolls.
Oh, that, yes.
One of the questions I want to ask you two then, what do you think the purpose of having the analytical data and all of the access to data, how is that going to benefit news? What do you think the point of that is? Why do they need our data, in your opinion?
My opinion is they've already got all that data, and that part of for some reason, maybe I need to do some more researching or something, but that's one part of the proposed amendments that I'm not fussed about, because our data's already out there, the algorithms are already out there, you know, and look at Cambridge
To
Analytica.
Google.
Like
Yeah, to
we,
Google and Facebook. I don't think the media outlets have it though, and I think they're trying to get it. I just can't work out why. Because if they're news and they're telling a news story that has nothing to do with what my opinion is, I'll find a news story.
I sort of feel that the use of any data now, that because of Cambridge, has to be so much more transparent. And at the end of the day, I think that information, if it means that media outlets are going to start channeling stories in the direction of their demographic and what their demographic's interested in, if that's what the purpose of it is, then that sort of stuff's already happening anyway. And
I don't think that needs to be encouraged, because it just polarizes opinion even more.
But again, who are the consumers? They're already beholden to this stuff anyway. They're already sucked in. They're already believing what Koshy says or what Who magazine says anyway. Like, again, the discerning consumer isn't going to be affected by it in any way. But it's not. I don't know if your question was more, Finn, about how I feel about the actual media outlets accessing that information. I've been.
I would want to know what you think their point is in having that data.
I think it's to pitch to the lowest common denominator in their demographic and to keep dumbing down the population and feed them that information. But at the end of the day, as far as just my views on data generally, I'm not one of those people who is horrified at our data being out there. I've been a lawyer since the early 1990s, and even long before I started practicing law. As soon as someone goes missing, the first bit of information that comes out is the last time they used their bank account. And that's been the case for decades. Like, I don't have any concerns about my data being part of an algorithm, whatever. That's just the reality of the digital world we live in. Unless you completely go off the grid and move out into the mountains and never use any technology again, you are constantly inputting data, whatever you do.
For sure.
So
I fully agree with you. I think that Google and Facebook, they have basically everything, and it's you can deal with it. Okay, like on a level, I can accept it, but the news media having it, I see no purpose and no reason for them to know a single thing about me. I should not have a single thing to do with how they write their stories.
But the ABC, in their response, is very transparent about what they already do with data and information and algorithms. They're already they're already using it before this code's even passed Parliament.
And their viewership has dropped. Their viewers are going down.
But we're kidding ourselves if we think that media outlets aren't already accessing this information.
I think it's going to be much more tailored to the individual.
See, maybe
what do you think?
Maybe it's because I'm closer to death. And
see, I'm kind of seeing.
Wait. I was cracking a joke. I'm closer to death than the two of you. So the thought of media outlets knowing stuff about me for the remaining 2 decades of my life, I don't give a fuck. I really don't. And I think we're kidding.
Everyone's data.
Yeah, well, not for us non-boomers, okay, Tors?
Excuse me, I'm not a fucking boomer, I'm Gen X.
Gen X's? All right, whatever.
The cool generation invented all this shit we're using, computers and phones. It's Gen Xers who invented all this shit. So, don't call me a boomer. Oh, my God.
Sorry, Tors.
Fuck you, Karen.
Fuck. Too funny.
Yeah, Finn and I might have to live with it for another, 20, 30 years or so. Who knows?
But you think about it. I mean, from the second we're born, there's data about us.
That's fair enough. I mean, but I kind of see both your points. Like, I don't like having my information out there as much as possible because I'm a very private person. I don't like it when anyone has my information. I don't like the government knows my blood type.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. But on the other hand, yeah, the media already does use our information and does know what we look like, and we'd have to be naive not to think that they don't.
Do you think they're going to have that more of an extent after the code's passed, or do you think they've got it more now? Or do you think it'll be the same?
I don't think they're going to learn anything more about the average Australian citizen than they already know. I mean, fuck, China's been spying on us. They know our shit.
No, everyone does.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most
because they have laws to follow, and if they breach those laws of privacy, then we can sue them. If the government forces Google to get out all of our data to them constantly on a second-by-second basis to update their algorithms, then they are going to know what we are thinking. They're going to know what we're feeling. They're going to know everything about us, and they are going to tailor every single news story that we see for the rest of our lives to how we're feeling that second of that day. And that scares the fuck out of me. Because I'm barely okay with Google having that. I'm barely okay with Google having that. For Rupert Murdoch to have that, I'm not fucking okay with that at all.
See, it doesn't. I'm basically careless. I mean, I think don't watch commercial television, don't go to mainstream media outlets. It's not an issue. Like, at the end of the day, what I was going to say before was one of the most vocal anti-data gathering people in my life that I know, who's incredibly vocal about not wanting their personal data out there and being manipulated and all the rest, is also the first fuckwit to do the "what kind of dog are you" quizzes on Facebook, which gives Facebook way more data about you than anything else, really, including all your friends and everything. So, this tweet is constantly on his little soapbox carrying on about privacy and all the rest of it. But yeah, he's the one that's doing "what kind of Barbie doll would you be" quizzes on Facebook. So, and like I said, if it to me, I just think it's part of the world we live in. People have been collecting data on us from the day we were born. And at the end of the day, I keep going back to this thing, as a discerning consumer, you can choose to not buy into any of this. Like, I'm not going to suddenly start looking at 9.com.au for my daily news fix out of the blue when I haven't for the last 2 decades. So I don't know. The data thing scares me.
I think right now you have the choice, though. I think right now you've got the choice. I think what is going to happen is that you think you'll be clicking onto Joe Blogg's report, but you go onto it, and it might say down at the very bottom in fine print that it's a subsidiary of Legacy Media. Then you won't know, because the first 50 pages of Google are going to be the Legacy Media's plan or agenda or whatever you want to call it.
Blow up your TV. Don't do anything with mainstream media. Fucking start using DuckDuckGo or Brave. But we've got options, It's part of evolving. I mean, to me, it's like the people that are being the most vocal about this topic, that are on the 100% backing Google's opinion on this and Google's statements on this. Why aren't they just suddenly stopping in their tracks and going, why am I fucking carrying or like leading the brigade for this massive American company? They're not even questioning it. Google's right. This is fucked. This is dangerous. We're Australians. Why are they even backing Google on this? Where's the logic in that?
Well, who's really backing Google at the moment, though?
There are a few people that are. I mean, there's probably only 6 YouTube channels, but there's a few articles and blogs and things floating around written by Australians where they've bought into this alarmist. See, and this is interesting to me that we're talking about all this data and everything, because everyone on YouTube got sent that alarmist bloody email from what was a message from. First, it was from Google, then they did the YouTube one, which was basically a mirror of it. And everyone started freaking the fuck out. How many people actually went, what's this all about? I might go onto Google and Google it and see what comes up. And when you do that, the first thing that comes up is the ACCC website.
So about 6 of us did that.
So there's a lot of irony in this. There's a lot of irony in this, because already a lot of YouTubers have been manipulated and they don't even fucking realize it. They've read the Google beware, this is the end of the world
Yeah,
as we know
okay,
it.
right. Everyone's read that. No one's really said anything because I think most of us kind of like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. You know, I mean, Aussies, we're just kind of like, fucking whatever.
Should be right, mate.
Yeah.
Good
You
old,
know, I mean, that could be part of the attitude that we're seeing. Who knows?
good old Australian apathy. We're all like, oh, I'm alarmed. I'm going to be, no, I won't be alarmed. I'll just be alert.
Yeah.
There's this big scary yellow triangle. Don't be alarmed. Just be alert.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people just read it and went fucking and didn't investigate it further. But that's where Google and YouTube were very irresponsible by not providing any links, any external links. And obviously they have been criticised repeatedly about that because now they are providing external links to
They could have
independent websites that you've got to subscribe to read the independent commentary. Give me a break.
They could have been total dicks about it and completely removed the ACCC from their search results. They could have done that, and they didn't. And
Yeah,
they
exactly.
still kept it as the first result. You can
'Cause
type in ACCC and it comes up with the first link.
I read it and went straight to Google and punched it in.
Yeah.
I mean, if the ACCC stopped coming up, everyone would be like, what the fuck? And then that'd be like, fuck you, Google.
Yeah.
You know,
Then it would start.
we'll back the ACCC on this one. But yeah.
Okay, I've got a guessing game for you just to throw a bit of fun into it.
So can I just get Sesh's answer to that for my question about the data? Like, what is your opinion as to
Sorry, Sesh. I've meant
what they need?
What do they need the data for?
Yeah, what do you think their reason is for wanting that data? What are they going to do with it once they have it?
Oh, they want to homogenize the news cycle. They want one opinion. They don't want dissent. They want to push an agenda. They want to brainwash people. That's what I think they want to do.
But don't you think this is already happening, Seshoo? Like,
look, not so much to the extent that people like there are still free thinkers out there, right? And this is what I think it comes down to in the end, because we've been discussing things like the discerning consumer and things like that. I mean, there are a lot of people who are not discerning when they consume media. They don't look at both sides, the middle, the mainstream, the independents. They don't look at all that.
we just lost Finn. He'll be back. No,
I'll try to hold that thought in case he didn't hear.
Well, on that, while we're on that little topic though, like, and now I forgot what I was going to say because I totally agree with you that the consumption,
Cool.
the consumption of news and so on is we are already being people are being dictated to. But what I wanted to just throw into the mix is, you know, at the moment we don't have an opportunity to express dissent. We can't put comments under stuff. Like this stuff's already happening. It's already happening.
Right,
but we still have the outlet.
I'm saying like there are still other media outlets there with opposite, counter opinions and, counter arguments to the mainstream narrative of what's going on around the world, such as like the Epoch Times. They're a publication that will speak kind of against the Communist Party instead of for it, like many of our mainstream media channels will, or publications will. They'll ask those hard questions. They will talk about things like Australia asking for an independent commission into the coronavirus outbreak. Whereas other publications, you won't ever see that mentioned. So there are different like left and right wing opinions out there, but I think what they want to kind of do is monopolize it so much that they just have the one opinion out there, and that's what everyone gets fed, and that's what you're told, and don't go anywhere else. Don't listen to anything else. Basically they want to be the next, that I'm more and more convinced that this is a globalist agenda, or maybe just a straight up communist agenda to bring communism to the
not
West.
even that, just a business idea. Just it's Rupert wanting control, or Rupert, etc., wanting control. And
I think there's a lot of competing agendas, and a lot of things are going on that seem to be playing into these people's hands or these people's hands. So I'm sure there's like this big shadow game going on that we know nothing about, but we can kind of see the effects of if we look closely enough.
Do you think that the legacy media needs your data to tell us what the news is?
No, I don't think they do. I think they're already trying to do it, like Tori has said. I'm not exactly sure what their end game would be with that, apart from I don't know, spying, control.
That's what worries me about
promoting
it, because they're being.
thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's what worries me about this code, is because it blatantly says in there that they want the data, and I can't see of any reason how my data is affecting what the news should be. I can't see any logical reason that's not a conspiracy theory as to why they should want any of our data at all. They don't need it to tell the news. The news is subjective. It doesn't care about what the individual person
totally is. Conspiracy theory, by the way, guys. Like I don't have anything to back up.
What do you think of wording though in the code? I thought it.
I just think ultimately, I think it just comes down to money. Bottom dollar. I mean, if they have our information, they know what we look at, they know what we like, they know what we search for, then they can put ads in front of our faces more often, and ads that people will like and more likely click on. I think it comes down to money in the end.
Jaguar just made a comment. He is very correct with that comment. I'm not going to say which one though.
Why not? Because I'm not looking at chat. I was trying to get the wording on the data collection.
They've owned the money since the French Revolution. That's very, very true.
Yeah. I was just trying to find the wording, because I thought that it was they refer to the data collection as one of the minimum standards from memory.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
Well, that's sort of the minimum standards are the aspects of the code that will have to be adhered to, and then anything beyond that's kind of is optional, or it's not enforceable, I guess. I think.
So they're saying. So you're saying the data must be supplied to them.
It said somewhere that the code's minimum standards were, and I'm just trying to find it at the moment in the ACCC quagmire, that it was they had to provide that advance notice to the algorithmic changes we talked about earlier. They had to, there was something about original news content that they had to recognize. And so
that's already recognized though, because
but they're not actually in the current legislation. So the code is, some of the amendments are actually putting things that are already happening into writing. There are things that are happening that just have never been. This legislation is from 2010 and it hasn't been amended in the last decade. So there's a lot of the proposed amendments that are coming up that are literally just putting in writing what's already happening as well. And then from that, then you have all the new regulatory elements of it as well.
I think we might have lost Finn.
Bugger. Okay, well, hopefully he'll come back. I don't mind him for bailing right in the middle of this stuff, but providing information about how and when Google and Facebook make available user data collected through users' interactions with news content. I'm pretty sure it's sort of not. I can't find it. Hang on, Finn's back. Let me just add him back in. Welcome back, Bruce.
Shit, Mike. Surprised it lasted that long.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the wording in the proposed amendments and so on, but I was just saying that some of the amendments that are coming up in this bill are literally things that are already happening, but they've never amended the legislation. So there are things that are being added that are already in practice in Australia. It's not all new stuff. Some of the stuff is really just
2010 comes from.
Yeah. So like, you look at how quickly media, online media and so on, and also the growth of Google and Facebook and everything in the last decade. it is an outdated bit of legislation. So there are some amendments that really don't have a lot to do with the media bargaining code. They're more, I guess, just establishing in writing that these practices already exist. So that's why sometimes on some of the things that you read when you're looking at the amendments, you go, well, that's already kind of what happens here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the data collection thing, my first reading of it was that they couldn't be forced to hand it over. That was my understanding, but I can't find the clause where I read that now. We might have to save that for another live.
In everything I've read so far is they want access to all of it.
They want, but does that mean that they can have it all?
I think so, yes. There's a specific part in there that I remember where it says all data, all of the time.
But
Is that just metadata though? Like what kind of data?
All data. No, the paragraph above it mentions the metadata, and the next paragraph says all data.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Which I cannot think of a reason why that would be. I honestly can't.
I still thought that it had to sort of relate to the intent behind the code. Like it wasn't. There's bits of data that would have absolutely no bearing on this at all, and like skewing media in a certain direction. Like so, yeah. I'll make a note to look at the data.
Do. I would love to be wrong on this. I genuinely love to be wrong on this. But
cool.
From what I read, it is all data, irrelevant of whether or not it is relevant to what they're talking about. It is all.
I mean, the notification of the shift in algorithms is really interesting too, because who the fuck's monitoring that, you know?
Yeah.
I'd really like to
and it's an AI as well.
Yeah.
It's building upon itself. So what is it going to do? Is it going to send legacy media the update of what it's doing?
I'd really like to do a live on the more detail into the data algorithm stuff. I'd really like to do a live on the regional outlets response.
That's got to be protected under trade practices for Google, like the algorithmic data.
You'd like to think. Well, not if they're forced to hand it over.
But again, they're an American company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is
why they could tell us to fuck off. They could really tell us to fuck off, but they don't.
Why I'm predicting there could be a go fuck you, Australia. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Which I don't want. I don't think any of us want that. We want to keep Google. Google's fucking useful.
Well, I like YouTube, so.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I use it every day.
Oh, I don't mean they'll say fuck you and take all of their platforms out of the country. I just think they'll, as far as all of this media bargaining stuff goes, they'll just be like, whatever, have your own ads, do your own Australian content.
Oh, okay. In that sense.
But then I think what would result in that is because the government is now the ones trying to get them to do this. If they say no to the government is going to be like, okay, well, you're banned. And then what will happen is that we won't have access to them anymore.
And that would be a great topic for discussion too. Like, yeah, what would be the likely? I mean, imagine that. That's
be shit house.
That would be shit house. We've sort of had the extreme ideal world scenario, and then at the other end of the scale is
worst case scenario.
Sorry for all the doom and gloom, everyone watching. I didn't think I was going to be this negative the whole time.
No, it's been a good discussion, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been great too. And I just for a bit of a chuckle at the end, or it may not be a chuckle at all, but why is she saying, oh, fuck you very much? No ideas. What did you say about Ivor? Who are you saying fuck you very much? It has been interesting, Scout. Well, I've learned a lot from it. And all right, here's a little guessing game for you two lads. And thank you so much for this. This has been really interesting. We've I think we've broadened our views now beyond this is the Google stance, this is the ACCC stance, maybe there's something in the middle. Now we're like, okay, let's go right beyond those two stances to the most ideal scenario and the worst case. And they're both far outside the parameters of either the ACCC or Google's viewpoints, right?
I'd like to dive into more the independent media outlets' view on this as well, because I don't think we really know much about what they're saying at the moment.
Yeah,
they have released their documents. It's a pretty good read.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the regional one that I kept mentioning. So you'd love to do a live where we actually go through that in a lot of detail. And if I can get in touch with this person in Queensland from the Tablelander, that would be really cool
Mhm.
to have them as well. But yeah, I'd love to do a live where we do talk about the regional and independent stuff, Sesh, for sure. It's interesting if you go.
I'd be keen to join that as well.
Yeah, God, definitely, Finn. I want you both on the panel for sure. It's pretty interesting, though, if you do type in media bargaining code independent opinion, have a look at what comes up. You know, it's, yeah, I think we could do a lot more rummaging on. What do you both Google it? I'm keen to see what you both get.
I got the AIM, I got the Sydney Morning Herald, the Hindu Business Line.
Damn it!
Nice publishers.
My little guessing game for you both was, what country in the world do you think is following this incredibly closely and planning on adopting exactly the same regulatory controls as Australia?
India.
England.
Yeah, it's India.
Sure.
Wow. Why is that? Why did you say that?
India.
Yeah.
Because of the Hindu reference when he was reading out the links. But isn't that interesting that Google hasn't pushed that right off the charts if India is so fascinated in adopting this model as well?
Mm.
But yeah, isn't it
They got
interesting?
a much bigger base. Holy shit.
Mm.
That'd be very
Exactly. Huge. And I think Google have been shitting themselves about India I mean, India's basically said that the Australian model will work perfectly for them and they might as well just copy paste.
That's ballsy. That's ballsy.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I only just saw your message on Facebook. I had the Facebook
Yeah, no, all good.
on a different browser. I've got to say, what's the new name of what used to be Internet Explorer? What's it called now? With the wave?
Did they change it?
Yeah, it's got a new name.
I
I don't know. I don't know where I find it now, but what used to be Internet Explorer is now an icon that's a blue and green wave, like a surfing wave, and it's got a really funky
Isn't it
name.
Edge?
Edge, yes.
Isn't
I love
Microsoft
it.
Edge? Yeah.
Love it. It's way better than Explorer was.
No.
Okay.
It's still got the same E though, doesn't it?
Except for Bing.
Yeah. Fuck Bing.
Why does Microsoft stuff suck so much, but we all use Windows?
I really like
very
it.
good reason for that.
I think Edge has come a long way from IE for sure. But yeah, so India is the country that I did say this on my first live about this, that there was a possibility that other countries would be watching this closely because there's not many Western countries that have done it. In fact, I said, it could actually be groundbreaking for Australia to be doing this. And I was promptly put back in my box about that. But India has actually come out and said that the Australian proposed code is way better than from their perspective, way more comprehensive than any other country. And even though these other countries have had debates and so on with Google and Facebook, I can't find anything that says that they've actually legislated about it. So Australia could be the first to legislate. I don't know.
Because I was going to ask too, because if it's happened in other countries, like what are the results there?
Yeah, I've put a little note. We need to have a look at the EU and Spain and France because they've all already had these conversations a long time ago with Google and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Has it actually been passed or have they just had the discussions about it?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if anything's been legislated. I'd be keen to. But I think because India said that they're following Australia closely because they want a blueprint to basically bring in the same sort of regulations, that it's possible the other countries haven't legislated, or if they have, it's not as comprehensive. But
that'd be good to follow up
on. Now, what's Ivor saying now? I chat and comment what's going on in the lives. Tori gets scared because she thinks I'm playing up. Tori needs to actually get someone to watch the chat. She's up on a live, but we're all chatting. Yeah, but this is a topic that's kind of heavy. So I'm jumping around looking at the ACCC proposed amendments, and we're looking at ABC websites and stuff. You're not comment. I don't understand what I was saying. I love having you in here. You're a hoot. I just didn't understand a comment earlier. I'm not scared. I don't think people realise that I'm not just looking at chat. I'm jumping all over the joint. And Finn and Sesh, you've both been responding to chat a lot.
Yeah, I've got like 5 different windows open right now.
I've got about.
That's why I'm not looking at the screen. I'm like looking non-stop everywhere.
I've got about like 15, 40.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay. There's too many.
I've got 23 open on Chrome, and I've got 5 open on Edge.
Yeah.
I've got 30 on that one, and then if I open my other window,
Ivor, you can talk to people in chat. I don't know what your problem is.
about 30 on the other.
Major misunderstanding. Hey, El Marco Chinko. It's on Media Watch now. Right, okay. That's something I'll make a note of as well. So we've got a few ideas for some lives. I really would like to do the independent regional one. I really want to do that Media Watch and see what they have to say on the issue for sure. We're also going to look at the data algorithm stuff. Was there something else, Seshoo, that you mentioned to do?
I wanted to have a look at the independent media outlet point of view of this.
And then we'll look at Spain and France and the EU.
Yeah, and what happened in other countries if it's already happened.
Yeah.
I think those two things,
Make a note about that.
So,
that would be interesting.
At the moment, I'm pretty happy with the list you got there that you just read back. But has any of your opinions kind of changed now to what it was before the chat started? Like, are you still thinking that the code is in the favour of the independents, or do you think it's more going to take control or give control to legacy?
Well, I mean, I was being a devil's avocado, trying to be the alternate voice in it. I still, my personal feeling is that a lot of this is kind of moot, and it's really hard to know what's actually going to happen when this starts getting implemented. So the Spain and France thing, I actually really want to look into that and see what came of that, and if there were changes and how that's actually operating, even though it sounds like their legislation's different to ours, or what was being what was being discussed was the same. But I'm curious to find out, see if we can find some anecdotal evidence on what this is actually like in operation, I guess. I do. I mean, I think Kevin Rudd certainly dropped a few truth bombs that have thrown something else in the mix that's really worth considering, for sure.
Yeah, I did not expect that from him. Honestly, did not.
Yeah. I think from our initial reading on Tori's stream the other day, I mean, that's where I first heard of it, I guess, like, because, well, apart from getting the letter from YouTube and Google themselves, and then when we read through that, I think our initial reading was kind of like, well, the ACCC is saying this is what they want to do and this is what this is for. Doesn't sound too bad to me, but that was just the initial reading of this thing, you know. So I think with this discussion, my opinion is kind of, it has changed a lot. I didn't really have an opinion. I was just kind of like thinking, what is this? You know, what really is this? So from the discussion tonight, from watching your discussion with Zach on your channel from the other day, Finn, you know, I've kind of gotten a bit more of a broader perspective on this thing, but I'm still pretty confused about what it's actually going to achieve, who's going to really benefit from it, and how, and yeah, how it's going to look once implemented, if implemented, and yeah.
And I do stand by one comment that I made earlier, that I do think a lot of this is already happening anyway. Like, if anything, the regulations might reduce the amount of money that's been thrown around, and that's about it. Because I think a lot of the stuff that's already happening. I think a lot of the concerns that are being raised are already happening. So it's certainly like it is a massive collection of rabbit warrens to go down, and you sort of head down one and then it shoots up, which is why it's so good to have these panel discussions and everyone bouncing ideas around and seeing what chat's got to say about it as well, because it is confusing. There are responses that are coming out. Like I agree with you, Finn. I think the ABC response, the bits that I scanned through, it was like, oh, they think this is a good idea. And then it's like, no, they don't like this idea at all. And then they're almost sort of mimicking the transparency that the proposed amendments are trying to get out of the other media outlets. And it's kind of a weird read. And I ended up putting it, the more we're talking about it, I need to read all of it. But that, like I said to you before we went live, that sort of almost sits in the middle of the two, like the Google, Facebook, ACCC perspectives. But then Kevin Rudd.
I think it's still definitely on the side of the ACCC.
I do too. I think it's very right leaning.
Yeah,
Sure. If we're calling the ACCC the right in this, which they are.
Call it whatever you want. It's it's on the side of the legacy media, without doubt.
Yeah. Which would be the right. And then Rudd just threw a whole heap of shit into the mix as well, which I really want to digest and think about as well. I still don't know where I stand. I mean, I'm not saying I'm in the middle to be a fence sitter. I just can't quite see I'm shifting in my thinking for sure, but I need to do some pondering of it, I think.
Can we ask the audience if they've got any questions or anything we want to cover?
Absolutely.
Can we get any of them on here, or can they only just chat?
They can come up if they want.
Yeah.
I mean, Tori threw the link in there.
I don't mind dropping it again if anybody wants to. Just don't pawn me, please. I'll be checking chat. I do need to get a glass of water too. I'm a bit thirsty. So just give me a moment. But yeah, more than happy for people to jump on up if they wish to. Google needs to respond. Google has kind of responded. Facebook won't. Hey, Blue. Hey, we've got Jake over here coming up. Welcome.
Hey.
How you doing?
Seshoo. Tori and Finn. How you doing, guys?
Jaguars.
How are you?
Also an Aussie.
Doing good.
Are you a brunette as well? Just out of curiosity. You don't have to cam up. But...
No, I'm not.
What? You're not a brunette?
Oh, brunette. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I thought she said, am I a Brit? I'm like, maybe. I misunderstood. Yeah, I'm a brunette.
Right, so I'm going to get a glass of water, start chatting. I can hear you while I'm doing that.
So I do have a question for the panel. When do we expect to know when the effects of this negotiation policy will take place? When will we actually begin to know and get solid data, or when could we anticipate that?
Like an exact date?
No, not an exact date. Like a month or so, like in a general.
Well, the last date for suggestions for the draft was on the 28th, was it, of this month?
I recall so.
3 days ago. So it's probably gonna be a while after this. You know.
Is it being tabled in September in Parliament?
I saw something about the 9th of September, but I don't know what that was for. I don't know.
I thought that was for the ratification if Google responded sooner than later.
Google did respond almost straight away. I've got on my channel, there's a video where I talk about it.
All right. I need to watch that then. I'm out of the loop on this. I'm not as well read on this as you guys are. I just wanted to come up.
I've only been reading the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've been reading about it for a day or maybe.
Yeah.
Ben's the most well read on it.
And that's not saying much, eh? That's not saying much.
More red than me. You're more red than me.
Yeah, Claire says she saw September.
September.
Yeah.
All right.
September 9th, I saw something about Parliament, but I can't remember what that was, so don't quote me on that. But early September.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't think that'll be the date that it kicks in, though. I think that's just another discussion. Usually, government stuff takes.
Oh no, yeah, it's just being tabled in September. There's going to be a lot of debate on this for sure. I don't think the opposition can give Scotty from marketing an easy time with this.
That's the best insult. That's the best insult. I love that. He really is, though. He really is from marketing. That's gold. Oh, fuck, that's funny.
Oh, yeah, too. Yeah.
He made the fucking "Where the bloody hell are you" ad. God damn.
If that was not the cringiest thing ever to come out of Australia.
No, I can think of one more that was. I can think of one more that was budgie smuggling.
No, man.
The only thing that could trump that would be budgie smugglers.
I'm still getting my head around the fact that we've had a prime minister called Kevin, and now we've got one called Scott. I'm just waiting for us to have a Shaniqua. But I think it was September that they are tabling it. But yeah, that's just when it gets tabled. Like it's a bill, so there's going to be a lot of conversation and discussion in Parliament, sure. Which in itself is.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Right.
If it gets to Parliament and it's all one-sided, that's going to be fucking scary. So I really hope it's debated for a long time.
Do you think that the possibility of it being one-sided from either party would be likely then, if that were to be the case?
I think
I hope not.
I do think that some of the proposed amendments that aren't really relating to the code will just get passed straight away because they're really just putting on paper practices that already exist in Australia. But I think as far as the code goes, I guess it depends, I suppose, on how much money's been passed around under the table. And
Correct.
Bob should be the next Prime Minister, or Shane. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we've already had a Bob.
Why can't we have a lady?
We already had a Bob.
Yeah, we do have a Bob. What about an Absidy?
Yeah, not a bomb. He was a bit of a hawk, wasn't he?
Oh, Lasasha.
Absidy.
We've had because Bob Menzies we had as well.
Oh, Menzies, yeah. Okay.
Warning.
I don't think it's going to be.
Lasasha. My grandmother said to me, not that I ended up having children, but she said to me, imagine your children being a Supreme Court judge when you name them. So don't call your daughter Trixie. I can't remember what other name she said, but she was sort of saying, try to picture your child having a career as a Supreme Court judge. And yeah, so when you give them a name, but I'd love to have a PM called Ladasha.
No, I think Trixie would make an awesome judge.
Wouldn't it be funny if they had like a last name of Gavel as well, like Trixie Gavel, the judge?
Exactly, or Clitoria, as Mel points out, but definitely no Ruperts. We don't want a Rupert as Prime Minister.
No thanks. No thanks. Nope.
Unless it's that dish.
I think though. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Finn.
I was going to say it'll be interesting when it is in Parliament because we'll have access to the video and stuff from there. Hopefully, it'll be getting streamed. I think it'll be very interesting to see which Parliament members are taking the side of it and just passing it through, because that's going to point out exactly who is owned by who. So
exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like who's, how much money's been passed under the table and so on. But I think there'll be dissent on some amendments, agreement on, they do go through with a bill. They'll go through each thing. And I suspect that definitions will take a long time to be agreed on. Oh, Finn's prematurely evacuated again. It'll be very interesting to watch it for sure.
Mm.
But there's so much to absorb, and I think that the initial
He's still there.
he's
Still
back
there.
now.
There he is.
Welcome back.
I'll lose the video. No one buy Microsoft webcams. Don't do it.
You know, I paid like $32 for my webcam on eBay. Works great.
Good stuff.
I paid close to 100 for this stupid thing. Being a
I paid
boomer now,
120.
being called a
I paid
boomer.
120 for mine.
Not even using it, mate.
Just go to eBay, guys. eBay is my
Oh,
favorite place to shop.
I use
these
it for
days.
my work. I use it for my work, admittedly.
Yeah, that's all
So have any of us sort of, including chat, I mean, I think it's been a really good discussion because we have nutted out some areas. I noticed, I think Zachary was in chat earlier. Did you guys see Zachary popping in? Who was on your channel, Finn?
Oh, was he? I didn't see him pop in. Are you still there, mate? I
Yeah,
did send him the link to it. Oh, yeah, he did.
I saw
Sorry,
Claire
I missed
there
your
saying
segment
that.
earlier.
Yeah, I saw
Well,
Claire saying
he's got a question for you guys. Here you goes. Tori, I missed your earlier segment of the live, but are you all at all concerned on the potential infringement this code has on our democracy and freedom of press?
Ooh, that's a cool one.
Well, yeah, I am concerned. I'm not completely saying it doesn't. I mean, I already think we've got, especially, I mean, freedom of press is interesting because, yeah, I think it is going to be even more filtered and aimed again at that sort of, unfortunately, you know, that dumbed down population sheeple type thing. I think that's certainly going to be problematic. I would like to think from reading the proposed amendments that it's going to, you know, what the intention of it is to give smaller media outlets a say. But there's also the aspect that you raise about the democracy side of it. I mean, I already feel like we don't have a lot of democratic rights in responding to a lot of stuff the mainstream media outlets are putting out there because we don't get to comment under it. I already feel that we're lacking that opportunity, and the fact that the ABC don't want people to be able to comment, but the bill is saying people should be able to comment, that's an interesting subject probably for another live as well. How do you guys feel about it, Finn, Sesh, Jaguar?
I'm pretty concerned.
I
reason I'm doing this.
I am concerned, and I just hope that they don't try to streamline alternate narratives into the mainstream narrative, kind of like what happened with, I know it's not a directly related example, but a little bit like CNN, except the social media version of CNN.
And CNN is one of the major news sources that gets reprinted and republished all around Australia already. Same with Reuters.
Yep. Reuters, especially Reuters.
I mean, all these media outlets, I think most of them, not all, but most of them are kind of already in this little echo chamber. They feed off each other. They print the same stories. This journalist talks to this journalist, and this journalist says, oh, this so-and-so, this happened. And then this journalist goes, oh, really? I'll just print that. There's no checking of facts. There's no they'll just print whatever the hell they think they want people to hear. And, I think our democracy, I think what Zach was really asking, not in the sense of the democracy as in like what we can say on a YouTube channel, I think he's probably talking about our democracy in general as a whole, as in the way that we function as a country, as in the way that we think as a country. I'm most concerned about that because when voices are silenced, doesn't matter whether they're from the left wing, the right wing, whatever, when ideas are shut down, then you get to think less because you get less perspectives on all sorts of different things. And I think it's better for a democracy like ours and, having a educated, well-informed public is, I think, the most important thing to a well-oiled, functioning democracy. So on that level, I'm very much concerned about it, because if it stifles speech, if it silences opinion, then it's not a good thing, no matter who's doing it, whether it be Google or our legacy media or whoever. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but the dichotomy here is that the intention, the publicly announced intention of all of this is to try and maintain and protect our democratic right. This is where the issue is, because it's sort of thinly veiled that that's what this is trying to achieve. But we're already in a country where we are being fed a lot of media from external sources. We are already being fed a lot of media from two major players in the media business sector. And we're also being fed all of that through two very large, Google, YouTube, Facebook, two very large social media platforms, and that's already happening. So, yeah, I don't think that this bill is going to suddenly make everything peace, love, and happiness and rainbows at all. I'm certainly concerned. It's where I'm finding it really confusing is it's almost like the information we're being fed through the ACCC and the proposed bill is supposed to make everyone go, oh, look, they're protecting our democratic rights, and they're going to give smaller independent journalists a say, and they've been stopped from having a say for so long because this hasn't been regulated. But the reality is this stuff's already happening here.
I do have a question, though. Would it be fair to say that it wasn't so much the lack of regulation, but maybe there was a level of, say, like side skirting the regulations by going under, say, publishing statuses with the other bigger mainstream media outlets? Was there like a level of that from your view?
I think that there's been a lot of corruption going on, and I mean, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly, but I think that someone's been getting a fair bit of pressure because there's been backroom deals going on that, at some point, Australia's been very slow to actually put in any kind of regulations. But it's possibly what's happening. I mean, it's a confusing time because you do question all of that sort of stuff, and we're not going to get that sort of transparency from any of the parties involved. Let's be honest. So yeah, I think that on the face of it, they're trying to say that there's been backroom deals going on for a long time, and it's time to start regulating it in its most simplistic of terms. And like I said, the ACCC's sort of gone with this peace, love, and happiness approach. But
I think if they were actually trying to regulate it, though, I think all of Rupert's media would be slamming the ACCC. They'd be taking Google's side right now, but they're not. They're taking the ACCC side, which makes me think that the ACCC is going to support Rupert in the long run.
Exactly.
Do you think? I was going to say, do you think part of that is also PR too?
In what way?
PR on Rupert's behalf as much as it is on the ACCC's behalf.
Yeah, but if you own a news media organisation and the government is attacking that in any way, you're going to run negative campaigns against that entity. But that hasn't been happening, which is making me think that a lot of what they're publishing is going to benefit them.
So
Well,
maybe there's
really
a compromise.
The best position to be taking at the moment is to have a look at the independents media outlets and support them, because they're the smallest voices at the moment. They're essentially the underdogs as far as I can tell. But like I said, I haven't even read into what they're saying or what they're thinking. So that's why I'd like to have another discussion about it another time. But it's nearly been 3 hours and I'm getting tired and hungry and thirsty.
It is late. It is late.
Yeah.
My little brain is when Zach's questions were read out, which are really valid, and I would definitely love to dig into it. But I was like, wow, this is heavy to start. I think the consensus on everyone on panel and in chat as well is that there's still a lot to be discussed about this. I do think we've made some progress tonight, though. Like, I certainly feel there are areas that were very grey before that are still grey, but a little bit more clearer. It's certainly ignited different critical thinking approaches and looking at different things. And I agree with Sesh. I think, if we can find some independent journalism, I just find it really ironic that you type in media bargaining code, independent journalism, and the first thing that pops up is the ACCC website.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm scrolling down now and there are people saying that Google's YouTube push against the ACCC doesn't add up. And then you go further down again and there are people obviously taking the other. I mean, everyone's kind of, I think, scrambling at the moment to form any opinions because it's all a bit confusing, to use a better word. And I think that's why a lot of YouTubers aren't going live about it. I think that's why a lot of people aren't talking about it because it started out.
Still trying to figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, and it started out what Google originally sent all of us on our YouTube channels was markedly different, what it was claiming to what the ACCC was saying. And that's why I was saying, somewhere in the middle we're going to find the truth because they were almost yelling at each other from completely different perspectives. Over time, Google and YouTube have started to add links and whatever, but that initial stuff it was almost like they were both screaming about completely different issues. That's how I found it. But,
I immediately was like, hold on a second, let's not jump the gun on any of this stuff,
Did any of you
That's one of the first things I read.
So alarmist.
Did any of you guys get screenshots of that original YouTube or Google?
Yes,
I do.
Yeah.
Cool, because I think it'd be really good to go. I mean, I've got it in my live, but I think it'd be really good to go back to that again at some point as well and just have a look at it and what's evolved since then, because that first thing was very alarmist. And I don't. I certainly don't feel like now we shouldn't be a bit alarmed. I think we should be a bit alarmed, but I think their original strategy was a bit off the mark. But you guys are awesome. Thank you. We're all looking very broken and exhausted now.
Except me, because my camera's off.
I just put you in the mix. The fact that your camera's off, I figured.
I've lost talk now. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm out.
Oh, we can hear you, Finn. We can hear you. We can hear you, Finn.
No, we're here. We're here.
But thank you so much, Finn, for hanging out on panel. Sesh, thanks for jumping up. Jaguar Media, thank you, everyone in chat. I don't know if we're going to save the planet, but I think we all have an opportunity to continue to be vocal. And if we're not proving that small independent creators, I'm not going to say journalists, can have a voice, well, we've proven that tonight. So I think we just keep soldiering on and watch this space, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone in chat. Some of you guys have been with us at the start and hung with us the whole way through. Really appreciate
I don't know
that.
how you guys did that. Praise.
But yeah, stay groovy, everyone. And we've got some really good suggestions or some ideas now from this panel too for some future shows. We can really focus in on some of the issues. I'd really like the next one to be looking at the regional / independent media responses.
Very interested to see what you guys think about that. Because
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So we'll all you speak to your people, I'll speak to my people. We'll all make this happen. More than happy to go to the channel too, if one of you would like to host the next one.
Yeah, I don't mind hosting.
Cool.
Maybe do you guys want to meet up in like a week's time? Maybe next Monday.
Sounds groovy.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Sounds grand.
Have a good night,
everyone. See you guys. You can all jump off. I'll hang around because D90's told me to wait. But thanks, guys. You're amazing.
No problem.
All right. Catch you later. It was good talking to you, Finn.
Yeah, you too, man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
See you, Toys.
See you guys. Stay groovy. Whoa. Gigantic Tori. Okay, I'm waiting, D90. You've got 3 minutes. Jaguar Media, thank you for coming up on panel. Yeah, I think the regional one would be fantastic, Francesca, for sure. I'm really keen for us to nut that one out. I think Zachary and Finn did it too, which was good. So jump over to Finn's channel and check that one out. I'll see you later. Okay, T90 Bill. Yeah, I was waiting to see if you had a question or something. Happy to hang around for a sec if you do. That was a good discussion, Sesh. Thanks again, mate. And thank you very much, Finn, as well. And we've certainly earmarked some other areas that it's worth us digging into a little bit further. So I just hope that we all get to keep doing our little YouTube channels. And if not, we'll just move over to Twitch. But thank you so much, Groovers. I think unless D90 comes back with a channel link for Finn. Well, Finn's around. Sesh, one of the mods, if you could drop. Oh, hang on, I might get it first. Be really keen to have Zachary come up. Zachary's question was brilliant, but this hour of the night. I am certainly concerned though, Zach, if you're still listening. Zachary, I certainly don't. Oh, thank you, Claire. I was playing devil's avocado at the start and trying to provide the other side of the argument, which has fried my brain a bit as well. But on that note, Groovers, thanks for hanging out. 3 hours. Wow. We'll be doing this again next Monday by the sounds of it. Take care of each other. Stay safe, especially Victoria. Lots of love to everyone in Victoria. Love you guys heaps. And thanks again to my fabulous panel guests. Everyone in chat. Love yous all. See you soon. Bye.